and welcome back to Mixed Media. We're here for another week of a fantastic podcast. We were not in last week, unfortunately, because of some technical difficulties, but I'll get into that when I talk about how my week was. But for now, I gotta explain a few things. My co-hosts are missing right now, and, well, they'll be here eventually, but for now you're gonna have to hear me blow some hot air. Oh, what's up, Post? How's it going in the chat? There you go. But yes, Nathan is probably scurrying to a location where he can record right now. He got surprised by a college room being occupied when he thought that it wouldn't be, and that's okay. And Ben is practicing for a recital that he has, I think tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then sometime soon. And he's going to be here a little bit later, so he's going to still be on the podcast, just probably doing a segment at the end. But first, for those who are new to this podcast, this live podcast, what is Mixed Media? Mixed Media is a mixed bag of things. You know, it's a show about a lot of different things. It's a show about particularly music, gaming, and film, because those are the art forms that all of the hosts tend to do and talk about and love very much. But we also talk about a lot of things related to those things and other things as well. So sometimes we'll talk about 3D design. We'll also do... oh, hey, sup, 909 Crime in the chat. Hi. We'll talk about things related to our art forms as well, whether it's business or it's, some artistic advice or whatever it is. We talk about it pretty much all. So if you go to our catalog, you'll find things including talking about the recent bank run at SVB, all the way to talking about, John Wick, like we'll be talking about today on my section of the podcast. But first, before I get into some of the meat and potatoes, got to give shout-outs to awesome people, two of which are in the chat right now. That's 909 Crime and Post. And also to Kai Kairos on Twitch, K Kairos if you're on Discord, for all supporting us for $5 a month at mixedmedia.locals.com. They really do help a lot keep the show going. If you want to join them, you can go to mixedmedia.locals.com as well. There's a big red button if you're on Rumble that connects you right to Locals. Nice big link there, and you can see the perks there. In fact, since I have a little bit of time before we get started, I should go over a few things that are happening with the Locals in general. So first, all the perks that are on there right now are going to continue to exist, but the thing that is confusing right now, and it's because I haven't had a chance to reformat the Locals and also contact Locals support to make sure things work the way that I want them to. But basically, I'm trying to create a little bundle between my YouTube channel and this podcast, or my Rumble channel as well. I have a channel called Ariella on pretty much every platform. And so if you join our mixedmedia.locals.com page, you get the perks from my thing as well. My perks are not listed on there, which is the confusing part. So I will do that eventually, but you will see some random posts that seem to have nothing to do with Mixed Media on there, and that's special posts for people who are coming from my channel, which you can find at AWRIELA on YouTube or Rumble. So that's stuff about that. There's also the Discord and the link to the Discord's in the description, and on that Discord you'll find. There's a Locals chat as well if you want to join Locals, and other fun stuff happening there all the time. So that's my little Locals spiel. I haven't really updated properly in a while what was going on with that, and so I really wanted to do that for you guys to clear some things up. Okay, so actually, let me ask, now that Nathan and Ben is not here right now, let me ask the folks in the chat, Post 909 Crime, how are you doing? Is there anything interesting happening in y'all's life? And also the chat over on Rumble, I see some people filtering in as well. Let me know what's going on in your lives as well. I would love to hear it. Post says more than I can type. Yeah. Sometimes life is like that, yeah. I'll give you some news from my end, from my personal life. So I've started to integrate Midjourney. Now, if you're on our Discord, you know that Midjourney is a AI art platform. Post is saying, unless you're looking for an emergency guest host, oh man, that's actually really tempting. Maybe, can we hot drop Post into this? Let's see. It really depends on how long Nathan will take to get here. Let me just double check. Let's see if Nathan is going to be here soon. I just asked him. I'll let you know. I'll drop you a Skype link, and then you'll be able to just hot drop right on. Okay, so so there's a AI art thing that most people have heard of called Midjourney. We have the bot in our server. If you want to go check that out, you can like make a certain amount of renderings for free. I think they replenish, but I'm not 100% sure. But we have a Midjourney channel over there. And this art below, this episode artwork, which is one of the funniest things I've been able to make through Midjourney, is ridiculous. Now, obviously we know what the subject of the artwork is, right? Because of the title in there. I would like to know if you can guess what the prompt was that got me that ridiculous thing. So let me know in the chat. 99 Crime says, in terms of interesting stuff, I've just been writing lots of music. That's good. That's really good. Have you been posting them on your channel? I think I'm subbed to you. So hopefully I can check some of those out. But 99 Crime is on YouTube if you want to check out his channel. He makes some catchy tunes. I really like them a lot, actually. So shout out to him. Okay. So while you guys are thinking about the terms that created this image, some other stuff that has been happening. So I just started to experiment with ChatGPT. I'm a little bit behind because trends are like weekly these days. Post says Mickey Mouse lobbying for his freedom from neo-feudalists. Oh man, that's accurate. It's not actually. The funny thing is, that is what it came up with, but that's not really what I was thinking of. This wasn't what I was thinking of either, but I thought it was so funny I had to use it. So try again. What was I saying here? So so I just started using ChatGPT. So if you guys don't know, I'm a filmmaker. I own my own company. I do marketing. I do media work as well. If you have heard of it, I work for a podcast network called StarQuest, or SQPN, if you want to look them up that way. I also do some incidental work for some local businesses, etc., etc., etc. And in that work, there's a lot of stuff that just is very much so not very creative. It's like minimally creative, right? It's like stuff that I'm going to spend 5 minutes thinking about to come up with something that really doesn't have too much value, but still requires me to spend those 5 minutes. Oh, Nathan's on there. We're about to hot drop Post onto the stream.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But now that you're here, I don't know if that's necessary anymore. Here, let's see here. Put our names up. Real quick, 99 Crime has another guess. He says, Mickey Mouse in a gunfight with John Wick, graphic novel style. I wish it was that specific. Like, I really didn't type anything that specific in there, and I got this ridiculous thing. So yeah. But that's a lot closer, I will say that. And I'll give you the answer soon. Let's see here. What was I doing? Okay. Maybe another time, yeah. Okay. Nathan, how's it going? And maybe you should introduce yourself.
I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and game developer, and I run all around campus to find a room where I could do a podcast. Normally, it'd just be in my dorm, but I found out it was like a audio booth thing, on campus. So I was like, oh, let me reserve that. I reserved that last week, a whole week ago. I'm pretty sure it was like right after the last episode ended. or did we have an? We didn't have an episode last time. It must have been 2 weeks ago. Oh, I reserved it for last week, not this week. I understand. Okay, and we didn't have an episode last week, so I got confused, and I thought I reserved it for this week, but I did not. Okay, yeah. So I showed up, and someone was in there already. I'm like, "Did you reserve this?" She was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I thought I did."
Oh no.
So I'm far away from my dorm at this point. I'd have to take a bus back, and I figured the faster thing would be to find a room. So I went to the nearest building, or a nearby building that I knew had rooms. They were locked, so then I was like, all right, I'm pretty sure there are rooms here that I could use, and yeah, I'm here. The only issue is that it closes at 10, so if it goes any past that, I will have to relocate somehow. But yeah.
Sweet. Well, you're here.
Yep.
Yeah, we're just. I was just giving a lowdown on how my week was going. Was there anything interesting in your week, your prior week, or 2 weeks actually? Because we haven't been on for a while.
Yeah. I don't think so. Nothing I think about at the moment has really happened that was too eventful.
Okay, gotcha. Um, Nine Crab says no. Someone took the wage cage. I think referring to your job.
Oh, I see.
Yes. Well, we all have to liberate ourselves, in due order. Sometimes it takes a bit of time. But I was saying that I was just starting to integrate ChatGPT into my workflow. And the amount of acceleration in my workflow has been way more than I appreciated. I underestimate how much time I spend looking through web pages for an answer. Because it's not that useful for. It's just a better search of practically speaking.
Yeah, that's really how I use it. I just know something, look something up real quick, and then I just do that.
It's either a better search or it's good for generating, like I was talking about before you got on. There are some random tasks that are minimally creative, naming a video, but I'm doing 10 of these videos a week or something, so it's not it has to be the most brilliant thing, ever known to man or something like that. And I just ask it, I'm like, here's what my video's about. Can you generate some good YouTube titles for me? And half of them will be trash and half of them will be decent, and then it's much quicker for me to just pick from the decent ones, because I probably would have come up with something rather similar, because it's not like I'm coming up with something brilliant, for these titles. So for speeding up my workflow, it's been quite nice. Quite nice. That being said, the AI will take over the world, I'm sure. So
Nice.
Post says it's what Siri and Cortana want it to be. Yeah, that's 100% true. But the thing is, those companies, they stopped investing past the speech to text. But I totally agree with you that's probably what their dev plan was originally, was to get to the point where you could just have something that could be very human-like in interacting with you and prompting and stuff like that. Where it didn't feel like you have to do very specific ask and response type stuff. But I think they just kind of stopped midway through their development. Okay. What else is going on in my life? Okay, so I just bought this book. And this directly benefits y'all, by the way, because this will eventually turn into an episode. There we go. This beautiful book here. It's not actually that long, which is why I bought it.
The Gray what?
The Gray Lady Winked.
Okay.
And it's not that big, which is why I bought the book instead of just listening to an audiobook, because at this point I've conceded to the fact that I will probably never read a big book ever again in my whole life, because I'm just way too busy. So, which is unfortunate, because I think it's not the same experience, but ain't nobody got time for that, unfortunately. But that will turn into another episode in our sort of clandestine series. This one's about specifically the history of the New York Times, and I'm very excited to read it because I've heard great things. And we've talked about the New York Times on the show multiple times before. If you want to check those out, you got to go to our videos and look up. I don't know what you look up actually. I don't remember which episode it's from. But maybe it's like the information laundering episode or something like that. But you got to go check that out if you want to get the 411 on that. Post says, I've also been getting inspiration for new enemies via AI gen. Give me a second. Oh, cool. And the last thing that's going on in my life is I started house hunting. Actually, literally today, I contacted my realtor and was like, hey, I got the pre-approval. I'm looking to get a duplex. There's some complexities. And she was just like, sweet, let's just go right at it. And I'm so excited because I want to own my house. I don't like paying rent. Paying rent is evil. But I will get 2 units so I can make someone else pay rent. Well, if you want to learn about building your wealth, you got to subscribe to the podcast, and we'll talk about it at some future episode, I'm sure, about these specific things. But that's to say, you want to be the asset owner and not the asset renter, that's for sure, of any asset, if you can help it. So, yeah, that was my week. How about in the news, Nathan? Have you been paying attention to gaming news?
Yeah. So Asus has shown off, I guess, in some sense, their new console. Actually, console. I don't know what you call it. It's a Steam Deck equivalent of sorts. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you consider a Steam Deck a console because it uses a desktop operating system. So I don't really know what that is. But yeah, I guess I'll call it a console, handheld console. But yeah, Asus. Asus didn't announce it like that. Asus gave out 2 copies to 2 different tech influencers. One of them being Linus Tech Tips, and he made a video that I think came out either today or yesterday about it. He wasn't able to give too many details about it, but it uses Windows notably. So at first I was like, oh, interesting, a new Linux console, which would mean potentially even more games for the Linux community. But no, it seems to use Windows. I think he mentioned that in passing. I don't think that was he didn't like specify that. I was waiting for that, but yeah, it seemed to me that it uses Windows. It's not going to be released anytime soon, as far as I'm aware, as in within like the next few weeks, probably within the next few months type of deal. And yeah, it's looking pretty good. It's looking like it'll be a lot more expensive than the Steam Deck. It looks like it'll essentially just be a higher-end version of the Steam Deck. Yeah, so they claim it'll be more performant, and they said like it'll be like doubly as performant in like sometimes. I don't know what that means. Okay. I don't know, because there's so many tasks you could ask of it. So I don't really know what that means. Also comes with a proprietary connector thing that you can use to connect with Asus external GPUs. So you could actually give it like a proper dedicated graphics card. The issue is those things cost like $2,000. So at that point, you probably just want to buy it. You could literally buy a whole computer and it still be cheaper and also more performant probably. So I don't know what the point is necessarily. Yeah. So yeah, that's that.
Yeah. Post said that he put his stuff and ideas and feedback. I do see that on our Discord, linked in the description. I also see that some people are messing around with Midjourney. Leia was messing around with
I did see that, yeah.
Midjourney earlier, and it's a lot of fun. So check it out in the Discord if you somehow haven't heard of it at this point. Check it out in the description. I was gonna say something. Oh yeah, that reminds me that I have to give the prompt for this image because I think we're done guessing here. The prompt, let me pull it up, was oh no, where'd the image go? There it is.
Oh,
there it is. It was John Wick in a fight scene with Mickey Mouse. It was really that simple, and it came up with this really interesting style, and it made Mickey Mouse a mobster thing. I don't know. It's so ridiculous. But yeah, it's one of the funniest, weirdest things that I've ever generated.
What is he holding that's like sparkling?
I don't know. I kept staring. I was like, is that supposed to be just like a sparkler? Like a, like one of those firework things?
Yeah.
I don't know what he's supposed to be holding in classic AI fashion. Post says, "Is that a cigarette or is it the fuse for the TNT strapped to his chest beneath his suit?" I really hope it's the TNT. That would be funny.
By the way, speaking of Midjourney, I'm pretty sure they removed their free tier.
Oh, really?
Or the free trial. I don't think it was a free tier, right? I think it was a free trial.
I did not know that. Okay. Well, that sucks. Well, I mean, there are a lot of like, I mean, technically, like the there's is Midjourney based off of Stable Diffusion? Actually,
I don't think I think they're separate, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Well, Stable Diffusion's free. You know.
Yep.
So if you ever want to, it's just much less convenient for a lot of different reasons. Particularly because I like the idea of just being on my phone. Like I generate these images like on the fly, like at a moment's notice. So it's kind of nice to be able to do that. But other than that, I don't know that Stable Diffusion's even hard to use. So
no, I've used it before. It's pretty simple. And it has a lot of nice features actually. Like there's a thing where you can like, so you know, you obviously can type in a little description of what you want. There's a second box where you can type in things you don't want in the image. So that's actually
you can do that
nice.
on Midjourney as well. You can do negative prompting.
Oh, really? So you can? I guess it would just be. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, it's just I guess a dedicated separate spot for it, but yeah, it's probably the same effect.
Yeah. Was there any other gaming news? I don't know if I cut you off.
Nothing I can think about at the moment. I'm kind of scattered right now because I've been like the past like 30 minutes trying to figure out how to get here, and, like so. Yeah, I can't really think of anything at the moment. No.
Yeah.
Oh, GDC ended. That should be like last week's news, but like we aren't here, so yeah.
Yeah.
And also Godot. The Godot says, the Godot creator was speaking at the GDC. If you don't know, Godot is a game engine like Unity or Unreal Engine that's free, and he called it Godot or something like that, which officially is Godot though. Like that was the official. Like that, I'm pretty sure it's on their website. Is Godot. So I don't really know why he said that. He said it multiple times, and I was confused.
Maybe
I don't know
he's
if he
trolling.
just changed it on the fly, or
or he's trolling.
Yeah, and he also said that Godot is like has like I think it's like half the user base of Unreal Engine, which is kind of insane, and a third of the user base of Unity, I think it was. So
That's
I remember a
large.
long time ago. So I wasn't there when Godot was like first created and whatever, right? Mostly unknown engine to everybody. I wasn't there. I joined pretty late. Well, not late. I joined. I'd say a little before the massive wave hit that made it like super popular. Maybe I was on that wave. I guess it's just early on that wave. So it's very interesting. It's very strange to me to see like, will this thing even like continue to be developed? Will this thing like exist? Yeah, it's been like years, but like these things die sometimes.
Yeah.
It'll be another failed competitor that gets like some other open source thing comes out and just destroys it, or will it be something that stays? And I remember thinking, this is really good and it's gonna stay. And look at this, super popular. So yeah, that's pretty cool to see.
Prediction. We like those.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, for news in the film world, guess what movie they're remaking into a live action this time? Because it's not anything that you think it would be, because it's from the last 10 years.
Oh, from the last 10 years. Disney movie?
Disney movie.
Last 10 years. A live action remake.
Yes. I don't think it's really random. I don't know if you'll be able to guess it.
Is it like a popular thing? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a popular movie, especially amongst kids.
Oh. Is this okay? I'm gonna sound very like uncultured and unknowledgeable. I don't even know this is a Disney movie. I actually have no idea. There's a movie called Coco, right? That's a thing, right?
That's a Pixar movie, and
okay, it's Pixar.
No,
it's not Disney.
Yeah, although
Wait,
Pixar is owned by
Disney.
Disney, yes,
Right,
because they own everything. Yes.
Yeah. Is it Turning Red?
No, that's also Pixar.
Yeah. Wait, is it not Pixar or is it Pixar?
Isn't Turning Red Pixar? I thought it was Pixar.
No, I mean, is the movie that is being remade not Pixar?
No, it's not Pixar.
Okay. then my knowledge of movies has decreased. So I don't know.
They are making Moana live action.
Oh, it did come out kind of recently. Yeah.
Yeah, why?
Wait, is The Rock like gonna be in it?
Yes, yes, okay. He's gonna be in it, of course.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's one of the most like random. That's like, because like you don't expect to be surprised anymore by these remakes, and then they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna remake one of these 3D movies that we did in the past 10 years. You're like, oh, why? But I guess they did some market research and it told them, do it. I guess really random,
strange.
Yeah.
I don't know what market research they're doing. Does it actually work? I guess it has to work.
Yeah, well, of course it works. I mean, the thing is, like, with these, they don't, like, reach, like, the maxims of how much money they can make, right? But they always, like, at least, double their money. Which is, like, if you can just guarantee 100% return, then you just do it every single time, right? I mean, what else can you do that does that?
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm expecting it to be potentially cringe. And also, it's just completely unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. And Moana is a well-beloved movie, too. Like, I don't know. I haven't seen it, but, like, people really like it, so it's kind of odd, like, when it's fresh in everyone's minds, to just kind of, like, make it not the only version left anymore. It's kind of weird. But they'll do what they do. Let's see, what else is happening? Oh, I had a huge... I'm not going to get into the details, but I had a huge brain blast on economy stuff. Like, a couple things clicked. Oh, yeah, ChatGPT helped me do that really fast. Excuse me. Because I could look up terms with, like, large amounts of explanation for things that were relatively just, like, what do people think about this, instead of, like... I could just ask, what do such and such people define this term as? And it would give me that, and it just made it so much faster. I didn't have to listen to like 3 hours of YouTube videos in order to understand one concept. I could go to the YouTube videos that were, more particular, and then not get bogged down in the terminology and stuff like that. And that was super helpful. And I just like unlocked a new part of my brain. So I'm like excited to share that information, because it's things are so different than you think they are when you start diving into really deep into specific topics. But that's to say that, I mean, nothing has really changed in terms of my warnings from the last episode. I mean, if anything, it really confirmed that it's really bad. But the reasons why, and the cause and effect and all that kind of stuff is way more complicated than the complicated story that I thought it was. But I'm very thankful. I understand that. The last thing is that Rumble, shout out to the Rumble peeps. Let's see. Hey, we got some people watching on Rumble. Shout out to y'all. Rumble is turning into a gigantic platform. When I say that, I'm not saying compared to some other alt platforms or whatever, like alternative YouTube, platforms. It's becoming a platform in its own right, and a lot of huge things are happening. This is all since they went on public on the stock market, which a lot of people were justifiably, in my opinion, concerned would cause them to become sort of corporate pawns. And there's still always that risk, right? Just because, the corporate boardroom can start to take control over what's best for the platform for short-term gains and forsaking the long-term gains. But for now, it's working out really well for them. They are able to borrow tons of money to the point where, and this is the big news here, they are reducing their rev share with creators to 0 for 2023. 0 rev share.
What does this mean?
It means that the creators make 100% of the profits from these videos for all of 2023, which is gigantic. You're going from I posted this, that's a good move, I think. Yeah, I agree. I mean, even on this podcast, we've been seeing huge growth from the people on Rumble, and shout out to y'all, because y'all are great. And that's fantastic. But the really big move, that move came right after they had done a huge push to gaming. Like a gigantic push. All of a sudden on Rumble, there are huge Twitch streamers on there. I'm not familiar with Twitch streamers. I just know that, like, look at the comments, like, "Oh, I can't believe you're here," or whatever. Like, they're getting Twitch streamers on there. They're doing great packages with people. Oh, did my camera die? What?
That is a classic move.
Wait, but it was like full battery.
Nah, it's always does during podcast. It was like, oh, it's time.
Yeah, but hold on.
Time of the week.
What is this? What is this? Did it just like freak out? Let me restart my camera. It can't be. Maybe it overheated, which is always possible. I restarted it. Let me put my camera back in. Let's see. Either way, though, I'll keep talking while I'm doing this. But yeah, Rumble has been doing amazing stuff. I really appreciate the language that they're using towards creators as well. It's very creator-centered. They're doing things that I've thought of doing for myself in my own, thoughts on how a platform could operate. And while that really annoys me because I would love to compete in the future, that's fine. Like, like at this point, I'm just happy to have options that are not, owned by the same 5 companies all the time. And that's a really good thing. And the other thing about Rumble is that UFC is now on Rumble. You can't watch UFC like on YouTube or something like that, right? You have to do like it's like, I don't know. I don't actually know how.
I think they might post them like later.
Oh,
might not be
okay.
able to watch it immediately or something like that. I don't know.
Well, you can watch UFC live now. Live.
Yeah, I don't think you can't do that live. I'm fairly certain.
On Rumble. So they made a huge deal with UFC, which I'm happy for them for that as well. And let's see. What else are they? They did so much in the past 2 weeks. It's ridiculous. They now have pass-through streaming for gaming. This is really important for a gaming streamer. So now the latency is like really, really low. You can check the box. The only detriment to you as a creator is that you lose the VOD for some reason. I'm not sure what the technical reason why you lose the VOD is. I assume they were doing the saving of the video on the front end. I feel like all I have to do is switch it to the back end, and it should fix that problem, but I don't know. I don't know what the tech is. So they added that, and lastly, they did a huge giveaway to tons of streamers like at random last week, and it created like the most like. And I'm not saying this because I'm like simping for Rumble or anything like that. I mean, to me, they're still a corporation. I'm very suspect about anything that's large and out of my reach. I can't go visit their office tomorrow and like understand what's going on, right? So I'm not saying Rumble is the best thing ever made. I don't know. It's yet to be seen. But I will say, from a marketing perspective, this is genius. The CEO just went on to random gaming streams and just started tossing large sums of cash at people. And the moments it created were like the best advertising for Rumble you could imagine. You get what I mean? Like someone's in the middle of streaming, they've got 50 streams, 50 viewers or whatever. I would love to have 50 viewers concurrently right now, but they have 50 viewers or whatever, and all of a sudden, boom, $500 just drops into their into their Rumble rants, and that created great moments that, of course, are circulating around. I think the platform is on the cusp of just exploding, because there's no reason not to be on here anymore. I mean, Lo-Fi Hip Hop Girl is on here. Come on, now
it's finally official. This is a true streaming platform.
Exactly. And I love the general content being on here, and I will say that we were one of the first. Honestly, we were we will by the time the year ends, we will be in the top 10% of early adopters, I'm sure, in terms of time. Not in terms of performance, but in terms of time. But the performance has been getting exponentially better on Rumble for us as well. So thank you so much for supporting us. Okay.
By the way, guys, if you guys have any suggestions for how we can improve on the performance end, then let us know, because I'm curious.
Yes.
Always. Or if you have any people that who because I've been looking into doing like more. We used to do more interviews and stuff like that back in the day, and we kind of just stopped doing that. But if you are aware of anybody who you'd like to be interviewed, who isn't like a massive person who probably would say no to us, then let me know, and I will contact that person. And also, before we move on, I was looking through news again just to see if I missed anything, and so Saudi Arabia decided that they start investing in gaming now. So they're putting in $38 billion. They have something called the what is it called, public investment fund, which is for essentially like diversifying their economy, so it's not just oil anymore. So they have this thing called Savvy Gaming Group, which I just realized the name Savvy. Okay, I just realized it was actually a word. I was looking at it like a name because it's spelled. It's not spelled like the word, but yeah. And they're doing all the stuff over there, it seems, and they've actually done something. They as a gaming group, right? That usually implies that you're just a holdings company or something like that, and you're not actually making things and stuff like that. But they are they bought part of Nintendo, and they've actually become the largest third-party shareholder of Nintendo now at 8.3%. So that's kind of strange, random, but yeah, that's what's happening.
Yeah, actually, if you're familiar with Saudi Arabia, it's not strange at all. They like to take their money and throw it around a lot. I mean, they owned like at some point like a third of Twitter, I think.
Really?
Yeah. So, yeah, they like to invest in technologies basically abroad and whatever. Post says Saudi Arabia and Pakistan are popping off right now, especially in Tekken. Oh, interesting. Saudis love their video games. Had no idea.
Yeah, it says something like 56% of the Saudi Arabians are gamers, compared to 68% Americans. So I guess that's supposed to be high. I don't really know what these things.
Yeah.
There's something else I wanted to say too, and then I forgot. So, oh yeah, it's kind of random. It's kind of just a funny thing, I guess. So I noticed I opened Steam one time. I noticed there's a game called The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. And I was like, what? This reminded me of like something that would happen with Winnie the Pooh since it became public domain. You know, I was like some unofficial like random person making like some random game. And I looked at it and it's like officially made by Sega. I'm like, what? This is so random. And also I'm pretty sure unannounced. It just appeared. So yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah. Oh man.
As an April Fool's joke. That's why, actually. Now that I think about it. It was April 1st.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's all I have for news on my end. Pretty much, I think.
Yep,
yeah, that's all I have. Cool. Well, who's going first, actually? Since you popped out, I'm not sure. I can go first if you want me to go first.
Yeah, that'd probably be better.
Okay. Okay, so if you're listening to this live right now, the way this works is pretty much we record these live shows in one big batch, and then we segment them later. So right now you're going to see me transition over to the next segment, which we'll be talking about John Wick 1 through 3. And my camera has died again. I don't understand what's going on. But we'll talk about John Wick 1 through 3. Part 4 has just come out. So that's kind of the reason why I wanted to actually finish watching the current movies, because I had seen 1. So if you want to catch my thoughts on that, check me out on the other side of this transition and on the other side of me fixing my camera. Actually, Nathan, if you could stall while I fix this.
Oh, okay. Hey, guys. Yeah. So, yeah, if you stick around, I guess. Yeah, we'll be talking about John Wick, as Irving said. My segment will be about VR and the state of the sub industry of gaming and how that's going. And it has an interesting history, so I'll be talking a little bit about its history as well. I'll be focusing on sort of like the modern era of VR, which I'll consider starting, I guess, semi-arbitrarily put it at 10 years ago. Not quite arbitrary. I'll get to that later. But so we'll be talking about VR, how it's gone from 2013 to now, but obviously with a focus on like right now, what's going on, because 2013, I mean, it's good to understand the history, but it's not like super important to get into the details of it.
Sweet. All right. See you on the other side of the transition. Here we go.
Mixed Media Movies.
And welcome back to Mixed Media. If you've been watching live, you've always been here, but if you're watching in post, this is a live show that happens every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and we like to talk about all things art, basically, pretty much in our own little segments, our own little categories. So without further ado, we'll reintroduce ourselves. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella, based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
And my name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and a game developer.
Sweet. And in this segment, we'll be talking about John Wick, because John Wick Chapter 4 came out last weekend? Came out very recently. And I saw on Letterboxd it climb up the ranking very quick in terms of amount of reviews. And I was like, oh, there's some hype behind this. Clicked on it and saw amazing reviews. I mean, I think it has like 4.3 right now on Letterboxd, which is kind of crazy, hard to imagine well, that it would be that great, because I haven't seen it. So I haven't seen part 4, but today I'll be going through 1 through 3. If you like my review of 1 through 3, definitely let me know, and I will go to the theater, watch part 4, and come back with my thoughts ASAP. So just let me know if you would like me to do that. But one of the reasons I really wanted to do this, not just because it was in the sort of minds of people right now, was also because John Wick is kind of a phenomenon. It came out, the first one came out in 2014, 2015, and it kind of broke a trend, which was that your large series blockbuster movies were going to either be a remake of a series or like extension of a series, like a Jurassic World. They were going to be a Marvel movie, like Marvel movies, or they were going to be Star Wars, right? Like, people weren't pitching or getting jobs as much anymore for a new series based off of nothing. You get what I'm saying? Like, a new universe that is not a superhero in the traditional sense, that's not based off of some prior IP, that's not an extension of an old thing. And on top of that, this film had wide general audience appeal, meaning a lot of variety of people really enjoyed it, came out of the theater happy. And so for me, as a filmmaker who is very concerned, as I've talked about many times on the show, with the death of cinema that is kind of just constantly happening, unfortunately, I keep wishing for a reverse, and we keep kind of going into this death of this very important cultural item, in my opinion. But this is one of those that kind of sticks out as against that trend, and has brought a lot of people who forgot that cinema could be fun back into the cinema. So I bought all 3 last year or the year before that. I watched 1 and then never watched 2 and 3 for no particular reason. I just never watched 2 and 3. So I decided that this weekend I would watch 2 and 3 so I could give you a look at all 3 of them, all in one go. Now, before you're scared that I'm going to talk too long, these films are rather simple. So there's not like, I'm not going to be going like 10 layers in and like, dissecting, the visual language of scene 5A or something. Like that's not going to be this. It's not going to be a breakdown like that. Instead, it's going to be more so a look at it from a cultural impact perspective, and we'll also look at some of the technical aspects. Okay. Speaking of technical aspects, wait, Nathan, have you seen it? John Wick?
I've seen choice scenes, like the most, like a couple, like maybe 2 of the most popular ones, like the John Wick 1, like introduction, and then some other random John Wick scene.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so John Wick. So I won't be getting into any spoilers this episode at all. I think. I'm pretty sure I can manage that, so you don't have to worry about that. But what I will be talking about is some of the particulars. So if you really don't want to hear anything at all about it, I mean, I don't know why you'd be listening to a review of it, but there will be some random inconsequential details. Okay, so what is John Wick? John Wick is a style piece, or at least that's what I like to think of it as. What does that mean? A style piece means that the driving force for why people enjoy it, or what the filmmaker is trying to, I should say from the filmmaker's perspective rather, what the filmmaker is trying to achieve is trying to achieve engagement through style. And I don't hate that. A lot of people are assume that, I like very artsy movies or whatever, I guess. I also like a lot of normal quote unquote movies as well. But a lot of people assume that if it's going to be good, on the pretentious side of things, if it's going to be good, it has to be, slow burn and all, and the characters have to be up front, and it's got to be dramatic and yada yada yada. I'm not like that. I like those things too, but I'm not. I don't have a small grouping of films I love. I have a very large grouping of films I love, and so I'm not going to come at this film and be like, why didn't it have the deepest of characters, and why do people like just pure action scenes with no driving emotion behind it that takes me back to my childhood or something. Yeah, this is not that kind of film. Okay, these are not that kind of film at all. And for me, when I look at films and I think about how much I like them and how good they did, they're in relationship to what the filmmaker is trying to achieve. Because otherwise, I feel like you're just being unfair, right? If the filmmaker is not trying to bring you back to your childhood memories, then why would you criticize them for not doing that? Now, the filmmaker could be reaching not high enough, but that would be a different critique, right? Like, you could say, well, I know you weren't trying to do this, but if you did try to do that, it would have still achieved the same core idea, but it would have been better. And that's a different thing, right, than what I'm talking about. Okay, so it's a style piece, meaning you're supposed to look at this film and be interested from how it looks, how it sounds, how the characters are designed, how the acting is, how the lines are delivered, how the action scenes are, right? It's all the sort of dressing of film, right? We're not going deep into the writing, we're going deep into the spectacle. Spectacle, right? It's all spectacle. And that's fine. That's fine to like that. Okay. That being said, we have a lot of different use of trope in this film. So I'm going to briefly go over writing, and then I'm going to get into the other stuff. Writing will be super brief because there's not that much to talk about. On the writing side, we're using a ton of tropes from the action movie genre in general, as well as from spy dramas and from so think of like the Bourne series, and think about Mission Impossible, and think about what's it called? I might think my James Bond. Think about those kinds of films, but then also think about other sort of more light-hearted things, like what's that movie called? Something Brothers. Oh my gosh, I think my camera's overheating over and over again. I don't know why. So we may have to live with this for a bit. I'll try it again. I'll try it again.
Does it feel hot? I don't know what movie he's talking about. Something Brothers. I'm not really sure what movie would fit there. My only thought was Band of Brothers, but I don't think that's what he's talking about. That was like a I think it's a World War II show. I think it was, or I think there's also a game called that, right? Band of Brothers. Yeah, that is at least a show, and I feel like that was also like some mobile game as well, or was that like Brother in Arms or something like that? Brother in Arms. Yeah, I'm confusing the things, I think. Wait, game? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I knew it was not these. You've been out on the streets, therefore you must have seen John Wick. Oh, okay. I was about to say that's kind of funny. No, I hear you. Hey, can you guys hear Irving? Or Post said no. Yeah, okay. So just for everyone watching, I've been able to hear them this entire time. So I did not realize there's an issue. I don't know how long this issue has been going on. We fill in the dead air with something. So I guess what Irving was saying was he was saying that the story of, well, actually, when did it cut off? So I can explain from there. The last thing, yeah, last thing he was saying was that John Wick is sort of like, the story is almost like a legendary tale, right? Where it's the type of what he said was the type of thing where you would find a hobo on the streets and you would go up to him and be like, hey, since you've been on the streets for a little bit, what do you know about John Wick? And then I guess he would tell you this tale of the legendary John Wick. And before that, I don't know when he cut off, so let me know if I'm repeating him here. But before that, he was talking about how the way that it treats the different crime organizations is with respect with their countries. So like how there might be a Italian mafia or the Russian mob, and like very stereotypical like organizations, criminal organizations belong to certain countries, and it doesn't really attack the country itself, right? It doesn't really do anything with it. It just kind of makes fun with it. It plays with the stereotypes, and it's just a good time with that. So I think that covers, maybe in a very reduced way, what everyone was saying in the past. I don't know, past few minutes, I guess.
Can y'all hear me? I think
I've never seen John Wick, but as I said before, I've seen like 2 clips of it. That one of them being like the introduction to. Oh, he can hear now. Irving, speak.
Can you hear me now?
Did you hear that?
Do you hear me, Nathan?
I hear you. I don't know if they hear you.
Okay. I don't know why I've been having the craziest technical difficulties lately. I had to flash my BIOS to the newest version. My computer, like, I thought it borderline was like the motherboard just like died. Like, I tried everything, literally everything. That's why the last podcast didn't happen.
Gotcha.
End up having to buy a 16 gig USB because you can't put a larger USB or else you'll brick your motherboard.
What? That's so strange.
So I don't have a 16 or smaller gig USB, so I had to buy one so I could put a file onto it and flash my BIOS from my computer. And it resurrected. Everything works fine now. But I don't know. I'm kind of scared.
It's a new motherboard too, right? A newish?
It's like 3 years old, maybe 4 years.
Yeah, that's young enough where you wouldn't expect anything.
Yeah, very bizarre. But okay, camera's back too, so hopefully that stays on. Okay, so yeah, I was just saying, like Nathan explained it pretty perfectly. But yeah, it's in the genre of legend, it's the folklore of John Wick, and it's in that way it really does work very well. It's fantastical in some ways. I mean, in all the action, it's fantastical, of course. And he, of course, is basically indestructible, of course, because, he's the main character and we've got to make more of these, so, he's not going to die. But, it feels more acceptable because of the style in which the story is being told, right? It's like, this is the story of John Wick, from the streets. Right. That's not how it's presented literally, but that's kind of the style, if you get what I mean. Okay. So then we have Keanu Reeves. Let's talk about Keanu Reeves real quick. So we're out of the storytelling, the writing part of it, like I promised. Keanu Reeves is pretty awesome at it, particularly action. Like, let me backtrack a little bit. He has probably some of the least lines out of anyone in these films. like other characters likely have more lines than him in at least some of these films, which is interesting. And so when he does speak, and you remember that he can speak, it's not the most profound stuff. It's not like, whatever. It's delivered okay. But Keanu Reeves, when he's, emoting outside of delivering lines, when he's doing his action scenes, is so compelling. And that's because it's him. He does all the stunt work in these films, every single bit of it. In that sense, he's in the tradition of Tom Cruise, right? Who does the same thing for Mission Impossible. And clearly, if you've seen some of the behind-the-scenes video of John Wick, he puts a lot of time and effort and personal pride into his ability to do the stunt work. The particularly great part about this film series is way it does action is its respect for the gun, which is kind of and I don't mean that in the sense that the guns feel appropriately deadly, because they don't. But or like, that people handle them in any realistic manner. But what I mean is that the gunplay is not simple. Like, the gunplay is actually like well thought out and doesn't just simply not use the gun now because it's inconvenient, then use the gun now because it's convenient. It's way more thought out than that. Part of that has to do with Keanu Reeves' preparation and doing a lot of timed shooting, right? So in shooting competitions, I'm not too familiar with like the formats and stuff like that. I know there are different formats and all this stuff. I have no idea. But basically, you have a timer, you have to complete certain tasks. Sometimes the tasks are randomized, is my understanding at least. Like, hit target A, then B, then C, and then next time might be A, then C, then B, or whatever. He prepped like he was going to do a match. Or not a match, like he was going to be a professional, shooter. And if you watch him and you're familiar with shooting at all, you know that it's actually serious. It's not like, it's not a joke. Like, it's not like, we're patting all Keanu Reeves on the back for trying his best. It's like he actually put in the dozens and dozens of hours it takes to be snappy, and that really translates really well into the way that he handles his firearms on screen. He handles them as if he's familiar with them, because he is, right? So when he's presenting the gun, when he's putting someone between the sights on his gun, he's actually doing that, right? And so the motions and whatnot look more deliberate. They look more plausible. Of course, if he actually shot bullets out of those guns, I'm sure way more of them would miss than, shown on screen. He has like a 90% hit rate or something, on screen. But it gives him a certain believability when he's handling these firearms, that he actually does know what he's doing. It seems grounded in someone who actually does know how to manipulate these things. They throw in these awesome little moments here and there, if you are familiar with guns. These awesome little moments where he's manipulating the gun in sort of like a trick manner that people kind of show each other, like, for fun or whatever. But like, he'll like rack the slide with one hand, right? Like, because his other hand is occupied. So he'll like flip it back and then like pull the slide with his fingers, which is hard, and it'll be super smooth. And for a fact, that one thing alone takes hours of practice. And he's doing it right in front of me on screen, no CG, no VFX, for almost any of the action scenes. In terms of the stunt work, and the gunplay. Of course, the flash and all that kind of stuff is VFX, but in terms of handling the firearms, they're not. You can, in VFX, sometimes you do cut out. It's actually one of the first things I learned in VFX was how to do gunfire. Cut out the slide and then move it back, like animate it basically, so that it works properly and all that kind of stuff. he was certainly using gas blowback guns, which means everything was cycling somewhat realistically, with no concussive force. It's just like a CO2 is just moving, CO2 canisters is moving the slide back and forth and whatever. These scenes are probably too dangerous to be using anything more realistic than that. That I really do appreciate his dedication to that craft. You can tell that the other stuntmen, who I really want to shout out to, and I'll come back to them later, the other stuntmen in these films, they also dedicated a lot, but you can see with the way that they handle their firearms, it's just not the same. And that contrast alone gives John Wick a sort of weight, a sort of gravity to him, more grounded in reality, even though he's doing crazy stuff. Just insane stuff. I mean, it's not realistic at all in the grand scheme of things. Okay, so props to Keanu Reeves. Now to the specific... before we get into the specific films themselves and do a brief overview of them, I did want to talk about what was attractive about these films to people. And I'll start first by giving you some box office numbers like I always like to do. So, John Wick 1, which is just called John Wick, it premiered at 14.5 million, which is actually really unimpressive. I actually thought the first film would have been way more than that. But at the same time, it is the first film, and it was crowded out by literally everything else. At the time, it did not make a space for itself in the theater lineup. I'm sure that Disney had contracted out a certain amount of theaters as well, whether they were empty or not, which is an episode for a different day. I'm pretty sure I've briefly mentioned that concept of something Disney does as well. And my camera is frozen again. And it's going to stay like that for now.
Yep.
So, John Wick was probably dealing with not as many theaters as they probably should have had, and not as much recognition, although I do remember the marketing for it being very good. But I really only heard of it the most after the movie had come out, which makes a lot of sense because it grossed total, as of today, 86 million, which is not bad. Still not like, mind-blowing or anything like that, but 86 million is respectable. And you'll notice when you look at film statistics that the theater makes up a huge chunk of revenue. And I've talked about that on the show before, but theaters are actually the most sensible way to distribute movies even today because they make you so much money, and taking them out of theaters is literally just artificial. But I've talked about that before, and I'll probably talk about that in the future as well. Let's see here. So, John Wick Chapter 2, which I believe it didn't have a subtitle other than Chapter 2. It didn't have a subtitle, I guess. John Wick Chapter 2 premiered at 30.4 million, and up to today has grossed 174 million, right? So they've doubled their numbers across the board. John Wick Chapter 3, which is the last film that I watched, subtitled Parabellum. So John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum. It opened 56.8 million, which now we're at 56.8 million now is like your opening weekend is like already really good. Like if for some reason you get flopped over later at that 56 you're still happy at 56.8 million. It generated a lot of hype. Your marketing campaign worked well. Like everything worked well to get that $56.8 million in the theater. And it grossed $328 million as of today. And of course, the 3 came out way after 1, so it's had less time to generate cash compared to 1, right? So it's already at $333 million. At that point, really respectable numbers. And at that point, you are really happy because you've probably proven that you're auto money every single time, which is probably why they're going to make 10 of these. So, and I don't think Keanu Reeves is doing anything else anyway, so I don't know if it really matters I think he actually really likes this. That's to say, though, that John Wick Chapter 4, which just premiered recently, already has some numbers out. So, again, I haven't seen it, but it has, opening weekend, $73.8 million, which that's really good. And so far the gross is $245 million, which is already like 2/3 up the way, of John Wick Chapter 3. So presumably by the end of the theater run, it will already have caught up So not even including DVD sales or Blu-ray sales, rather, or anything else, reruns in theaters, whatever. It's probably going to, go well beyond the prior one, which is great. Good to hear that. But why? Why does it work so well from like a industry standpoint? Like I mentioned, we had a sea of other films when we were in the era of these films. We had those Star Wars movies that angered everyone, made no one happy. You had Marvel movies, which I believe when the first one came out, I don't know that Avengers Endgame, or not Endgame, the one before it. Gosh, I suck at those movies.
Infinity War.
Yes, I don't know that had come out yet, and so there's probably a little bit of a lag of interest, going on at the same time. People are like, I'll go see it, but excitement isn't at peak, right? As it was after Infinity Wars, and then all up until Endgame, which is probably like peak hype Marvel. Let's see here, and here's the biggest one. This movie feels like it could have been made in the 90s, because it doesn't do anything a modern movie does that pisses off audiences. Which is to say, it doesn't virtue signal. Meaning, it doesn't, put things in there just for the sake of supposedly pleasing a certain class of people, which supposedly even see those films, which I'm actually skeptical of when I look at the numbers. The people who are critical in such ways even actually go see see these films in theaters and give them money, which means you should probably ignore them if they're not giving you money, right? And we've talked about this as well when we've talked about Disney, but these big corporations, they don't care about you. It doesn't matter where you line up on these issues. They don't care about you at all. Whatever they're virtue signaling about, whether it's about race or it's about whatever the heck is the topic of the week for these big corporations, they think that it benefits them in some way. They've hired people who sort of perpetuate that loop of thinking that it benefits them, even when it doesn't. They ignore the numbers, and they will take the art form down with them, dragging and screaming. It doesn't matter what you think about those issues at all. That's just factual, right? So when you see a corporation, in this case it's Lionsgate, who made John Wick 1 through 3, I assume 4 as well. Lionsgate just didn't do that. It just didn't do that. That's all. They just did not do that for these films. I presume the filmmakers also got a lot more creative license after the success of particularly 1 and 2 as a pair, right? So by the time they got to 3, they already had enough creative license to keep on going. If you don't know how this works in Hollywood, if you're pitching a series like this, number 1 is the dead zone. You are so likely to get destroyed after number 1. You're just not going to get money for number 2. You have to be successful. You can tell that they trusted them more and more over time in these films because their runtime kept going up. And it's not just because, they had more story to tell, because I can tell you right now from the writing perspective that is not the case. It's this. It's a similar amount of story every single time, but they allowed themselves more runtime because they knew they would have the budget and the creative authority to do so after studio saw the success of 1 and 2, right? Studio goes, okay, hands off, runtime can be longer, that's okay. So there's that. So it doesn't have all of the annoyances of modernity, and that's why one of the reasons people did so well, it has such broad appeal. Well, broad appeal is not just for making money for the one film, by the way. Broad appeal is for the whole of your company and the whole of the industry. If you stop catering things to a general audience and you pretend to be a general audience art form, as film supposedly is, right? At this stage, at least, we're not in the stage, and hopefully we'll never will be, but I'm sure that day will come, where we're just watching films in museums, right, or the equivalent. Unfortunately, other art forms are in that space. Once you've gone there, you're not catering to a general audience anymore, right? Your new abstract painting from MoMA is not catering to the general audience. It's not expecting the general audience to look at it, right? Cinema is different. It is still in a stage where at least you should be making films at this scale to a general audience. Of course, you have specific demographics that are more likely to watch, and you're thinking about those. But really, you're trying to make a movie that anyone can walk in, or anyone can bring a buddy and expect them to enjoy, right? This film actually attempts to do that. These films do, and that's a good thing, I think. And we need more films like it. Okay, now to the specific films. And again, I won't be spoiling anything. I won't be going into any particulars too much, because these are rather simple films. John Wick Chapter 1 is the origin story of the legend, right? And it's not the origin story, because of course we get the backstory that he used to be he used to be a contract killer, so and he's retired because he wants to live this is all the opening. He's retired, so he wants to live a happy life now that he's made tons of money. He has a mansion, he has a wife, he has a dog. He's just content, and he's just like, I'm done. He literally buried his weapons in concrete. Although, given that he lives in the United States, I'm not sure why that makes a difference, because he could just go buy more. But,
that is true. I didn't think about that.
But the symbolism, I understand, I guess. You're like, well, we'll talk about burying the hatchet later. There was some symbology in number 2 about burying the hatchet. But, yeah, so, he's literally buried his past life. And then, of course, he has the impetus for why he does what he does, which is rather typical. His wife was killed, then some people came and killed his dog, which is the kind of the meme, right, of the series, is kind of launched by someone killing his dog. And we go on a whole journey of revenge. So, film number 1 fits in the mold of a revenge film. If you've seen anything like Taken, have you seen Taken, Nathan?
Yeah, I think I've seen the first one.
Okay, I've only seen the first one too. Taken is like, it's like the classic, like, you take any like revenge plotted movie, and like it's the same sort of plot structure, story structure, or whatever, which is basically just imagine just plunging deeper and deeper. That's all it is. It's very simple. It's very linear. Plunge deeper and deeper and deeper until 2 things happen simultaneously. You change. If you're going for a deeper movie, and I always recommend you try to do that, you change, and you've changed the circumstances simultaneously, right? So you go to the depths of hell to go save someone, or the depths of hell to exact justice, or whatever it is, and in the journey, you get changed yourself, and you change the world around you. That's Taken. That's also John Wick 1. It's the same thing. We just keep going into the depths of the mob, and we start learning more and more about this crazy world of assassins, which turns more and more into like a more cartoonish, like League of Assassins type thing, if you get what I mean. Like, it's like, there's like some broader association, I don't know. It gets kind of nuts. But all the way, we get a bunch of action sequences. And in John Wick 1, it is very visually striking. And actually in all the John Wicks, but 1 looks different than 2, and 2 looks different than 3. They actually all look somewhat different from each other, even though I think people think neon when they think of John Wick. There's actually some nuance in the color grading that I'll talk about in a moment. But in 1, it's very dirty, which makes a lot of sense with what's going on in 1, which is just raw anger, right, is number 1. So it looks dirty, he's inhabiting dirty places, he's doing dirty things, and the way he kills people is quite graphic. Not graphic in the sense that you see gore and stuff like that, but it's quite violent in the sense that, like, the way he kills people is it's quite extreme. Yeah, exactly. And that's John Wick 1. I'm not going to get into the plot details, like I said already. And but you can, by the end that he has not died, because there's a John Wick 2 and 3. John Wick 2 takes a much more much less straightforward story structure route, in the sense that we're no longer in a revenge film in a traditional sense. Of course, there's revenge anyway, right? Of course. But it's not in the same sort of pattern of going deeper and deeper and deeper, that kind of thing. We've got a less linear structure because now we've got a whole organization of criminals. We've got different groups of criminals that we're meeting. And we meet Morpheus again from Matrix, which...
What?
That's some fan service right there. You know Morpheus from Matrix?
Yes.
Yeah, the actor, he's in it, which of course Keanu Reeves is from Matrix.
Yeah.
So, they reunited them for film number 2, which, honestly, at first I was like, this could go very, very, very south very quickly if there's too much fan service, if it just gets too corny. But I can't remember his name, the actor for Morpheus. He's very famous. I'm very bad with names, by the way, when it comes to...
He is Lawrence Fishburne.
Yes, Lawrence Fishburne, yes. He's a legend, and he's so good. He's so good in these films as well. He's hilarious. Like, he's just so funny. And a lot of these films are just laughing. It's just so... It's so over the top. It's just... Like, there's just... You can't help but to just crack up. It's just so over the top. Some things are being played for humor, and some things are not. But like, you also get the feeling the filmmaker still expects you to laugh, to have fun while watching it. So yeah, we get Lawrence Fishburne in there, and we get a whole cadre of characters who are very different from each other. Way more mobs, way more complex, and so it becomes more plot heavy in part 2. All these films are very plot driven because the characters aren't, the deepest, of all time. It's very easy to understand John Wick, It's very easy to understand everyone involved. So really the what happens becomes more of the star of the show, and the real star of the show is the action sequences by far, right? In fact, I would characterize these films as one big movie that's made as an excuse to do really complex stunt work. Like these movies are just a sort of vessel for just stunt actors doing their stuff and showing off. And it really does that well. John Wick 3 is about the same complexity as John Wick 2, but now we get the sense of where we're going in the future with the John Wick series. Whereas in 2, like, it kind of just felt like a continuation of the last story. 3 felt more like a continuation of the last story, but like also looking forward. And that kind of led to some... I was less pleased with that way of doing things, which I'll come back to. So cycling back, in terms of visual aspect of things, number 1 was very dirty. The neon was more like the neon you would think of in a dirty bathroom, if you get what I mean, like neon green, these ugly green teal colors, these like underground colors. And they were harshly contrasted a lot with those ugly reds that you think of when you think of neon signs in, like, the seediest places of a city or something like that. And they were doing this red-green contrast quite a lot. There were, of course, scenes where it was a lot cleaner, where we had like a scene in a club, I'm pretty sure, where, we have club lighting now, so it's like lasers and all this kind of stuff. And it's just crazy. Like, the lighting in these films are just... They'd like... We'll just put lights everywhere. Even if it doesn't make sense, they're going to be lights. And they're all going to be crazy colors for no reason other than because we want to. And I'm here for it. That's fine. John Wick 2 was very subtle with its color usage in a lot of different ways that I think most people will not appreciate. It went for a pastel look a lot with its crazy colors. Pastel being like... how do I describe this? Like... Try not to use like...
Think about like washed out, right? Or no?
Yeah, exactly. So take those neon greens and wash them out a lot. And what it did in terms of its color language in that film is that it did a very interesting visual thing where it was saying pastels equals, I guess... So pastels equals John Wick doing... normal stuff with the underground people, the mobs, but he's not killing them, right? He's not like, there's no action scene. Neon, which we also get in that film, means, we're going nuts now. Like, like Neon almost represents like his rage. When he goes into rage mode, right? Is when we start getting those neon colors in those scenes, and then we also got scenes for once with normal colors, which I thought was really interesting. And those scenes was to really take away all the energy and slow down a lot. And they wanted to, and clearly when they were thinking about the visual language, they were like, let's slow down the visual language as well and bring us back to reality almost, before we hop back into the legend, and that was really cool. I really liked that nuance. 3 kind of went back to the style of 1, but with way more colors. Like 1 is really green and red dominated. 3 is actually more like the classic teal and orange, like blockbuster movie type look, except not that boring because it's more on the neon end of things, really bright, but kind of on the cleaner side, not dirty like 1 was. So there's that. Final note, my overall thoughts on these 3 films. I would say number 2 is my favorite so far, and I don't know what the general consensus is on which of those 3 is better. So if this is a hot take, then it's a hot take. I don't even know. Let me know if you concurred or do you think I'm really wrong. I'd love to hear your reasons in the comments or the chat or in our Discord if you want. But I like number 2 the best by a good bit, I think. Number 2 had a good balance of being really, really, really freaking good action scenes. Like, scenes that took so much choreography. It's just, like, insane. Like, you're just, like, losing your mind watching it. While also not having the baggage of having to be a revenge story anymore. And therefore could be a little bit more engaging on the plot level. Because it's not as if in number 1, the impetus for revenge is so compelling that you're like, yeah, like I really want to see these people like suffer. It's not. Taken has a more personal, sort of feeling impetus for why it's happening than John Wick. And so like in the first one, you're kind of like, I'm here for the action scenes only. At least in 2, you kind of like get engaged in the actual storytelling as well, because you're being introduced into a more complex world and you're sort of dealing with the ramifications of 1 in a very interesting manner. So I like 2 better than 1. 3, I would say I probably slightly like better than 1. But I would say 3 kind of, I really didn't like the fact that they kind of started feeling series-esque, if you get what I mean. Like, like where it's like, now we're kind of got to set up a few details, for number 4. And I'm like, I mean, it's not bad. It's not like Marvel level, like spending half the movie setting up like the next 10 films bad. Sorry, not sorry. But it's like, it's kind of like annoying, It's like, I kind of just spend my time just watching this movie only, and the next one will be the next one. You did it from 1 to 2. Why can't you do it from 2 to 3, and it feels more complete and whatnot. Number 3 also, I think, was a little bit too long. And like I said earlier, they got more and more license to make them longer. Number 3, I believe, was 2 hours and 10 minutes, which is not terribly long in the grand scheme of things, but I feel like I liked how snappy 1 and 2 felt. They both felt really snappy. And number 3 felt like we were spending time making little one-liners here and there that just really didn't matter and didn't hit either. So I feel like when the editor was going through, they should have... I mean, obviously, it's hard with movies to blame someone because it's hard to know where decisions were generated. So, it could have been the editor, it could have been the director, right? The director could have been like, no, you're going to keep that, I don't know. Typically, we assign blame anyway to the department that's supposed to be involved. So, who knows? But the editor, if I were editing this, I would have been way more selective with how much dialogue I would have left in. I would have kept it to the action sequences by far. That being said, number 3 had the best action sequences. Like, the best action sequences of number 3 were the best action sequences of the whole series. Every 1 to 2 to 3, the action just gets elevated. Like, it's just like, you're like, oh wow, that was the peak of like stunt work. And then you see the next one, you're like, oh, never mind. That's the peak of stunt work. And these people are hurting themselves, guaranteed. Like, there's no way they weren't hurting themselves doing this complex stunt work. We have some beautiful long shots that show it off very well, too. Because, when you get the cut, thing that was popular in, like, 2008 or whatever, which is horrible, you can't see anything, which is how they hide bad stunt work, bad choreographed action sequences. It actually started with the Bourne trilogy, but the Bourne trilogy was actually used stylistically, but the action was also good. Then everyone was like, wait, that's a way to hide bad stunt work and cheaply get the I guess the feeling that action is occurring. But in this film, we don't get that. We have long takes where we can see everything. We can understand every move and why it's happening, which is risky because sometimes you can see that a punch was a little delayed, right? Like, like waiting for, the the actors waiting for the parry, kind of thing. And that's okay, though. I'd rather go that direction, though, because that's like 10% of moves, but then 90% of them are like, they're sold really well. They're doing really great work. There's a scene in, this is kind of not particularly the stunt work, but there's a scene in John Wick 2, which I think is an Oscar-worthy scene, and that's really spicy take because this is not like your typical Oscar bait movie. But in John Wick 2, there's an action sequence with mirrors. If you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This, I have no idea. Like, the idea of filming this is so mind-boggling to me as a filmmaker. Where it's just like a hall of mirrors, but not in like a circus sense, but like in a way I can't even describe. Like, every wall is a mirror, and the walls can turn, and like I don't even know what's going on. And like I'm watching them, like I have no idea what's going on here. I'm like, how are they making the lighting look good when there's so many mirrors? How are they making the action still just intelligible enough that I feel just as disoriented as John Wick feels, if that makes sense, but not more, if you get what I mean, disoriented than John Wick feels. How are they doing that? It's so good. It's one of the best action sequences I've ever seen. That's how good it is. And it really does a good justice to the action genre that I think has been dead for a long time now. John Wick 3, and this is my final thought before I wrap up, John Wick 3 brings in a lot of fighting influences from kung fu movies. And it's so good. Like, if you haven't seen a Jackie Chan movie, you need to see one. Like, go pick up like Rush Hour 1 and 2. Don't pick up 3 unless you're a savage. But pick up 1 and 2. I hear that the Police Story movies are great. I haven't seen them. That Jackie Chan directed himself. But Jackie Chan's style of stunt acting is so infectious because he always feels like he's about to lose. Does that make sense? Like, he always feels like he's on the cusp of losing.
It's like desperation almost.
Yeah, there's a constant desperation. And even when he's being comedic, it's always like comedic because he's so desperate, It's like, oh, that punch didn't land, like, now what? And like he's always like playing with the set in such a way that it feels as though like everything in that room needs to be used because it's not so as easy as it looks to beat up a group of 5 guys, right? And that gives you a sense of like, oh, this situation's actually scary. This situation's actually dangerous, right? He's not invincible. That's how Jackie Chan's style of stunt choreography and stunt work comes off, is it doesn't feel so plasticky. I'm not saying that was fully done in John Wick 3, because Keanu Reeves never really does that, ever. He's always like more on the composed side of things. And like I said earlier, because he's studied so well, competency with guns, competency with judo moves, competency with using his body in general, it comes off as very believable. But in 3, we got a lot more desperation coming from the other stunt actors. Particularly, there was this Japanese mafia in there that had a lot of fight scenes with them. And they did such great, I would say homages to Jackie Chan's work, which just like very crazy stunt work that's being done imperfectly on purpose, right? To make it look more realistic. And as a consequence as well, because it's more kung fu style, moves and whatnot, they're doing crazy, like twists, and I'm like, I don't even know how you don't break your spine every time you try to do something like this. Backflips and all that kind of stuff. It's a spectacle. It's something that the stunt community should be very, very proud exists. And I wish the stunt actors who just get killed over and over again on screen got more credit when they're doing crazy stuff as well. But unfortunately, they don't, because they ultimately they just kind of die on screen. But they are doing insane stuff. Not that I feel too bad for them because they get paid a lot too, but they're doing insane stuff, and gotta give props to that. Okay, that's John Wick 1 through 3. Well, my overall thoughts is that John Wick 1 through 3 are really fun movies. They're really good for cinema. They're not my favorite movies. They're not going to go anywhere near, but they're so much fun. Like, they're just fun. And are they the most fun movies I've ever watched? No. But that's fine. That's fine. Because at least what they do is they bring general audiences back to the theater, butts and seats. And they do it non-cheaply. Because what you're watching is a lot of dedication into the craft of both lighting and, lighting, color, and stunt work. Those are the things it's really celebrating. And the fact that it cares at all about the craft is so refreshing. It just cares at all about anything. It's so good. And, so I'm kind of excited to see John Wick 4. If you want me to review that rather soon, let me know in the chat and the comments, and I'll give you my thoughts there. But if you disagreed, agree, or whatever with anything, hit me up in the chat, hit me in the comments, or the best way to contact us always is on our Discord, which is there's a link in the description, and you can tell me what your thoughts are on John Wick 1 through 3. So that's my segment.
Nice. Cool.
Yep. And by the way, the episode artwork, because, this might be segmented away, or if you weren't around for that, that is generated by ChatGPT, or not ChatGPT, by Midjourney. And what it is John Wick fighting mobster Mickey Mouse, which was a little unintended, but is super cool, and I really like it. And the reason I did it that way is because, these are the types of films that kind of cut against the just run-of-the-mill Disney crap, that isn't just no good for anyone. So anything that does that, I'm a super fan of. So there we go.
Nice.
Sweet. Any thoughts, Nathan? I'm
interested in watching it. I haven't watched like an action movie. It's been a long time. I don't know what the last one I watched was, but maybe one of the Bourne movies, I feel like, was one of the last ones I watched, just randomly, probably just on TV. I was like, oh, let's watch this. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I also haven't watched The Matrix, so I do want to watch that at some point.
Ooh, yes. I haven't seen... I don't think I've seen 2 or 3, actually, now that I think about it. I think I saw a good portion of 2 on TV at one point, but 1 I definitely have seen all the way through, maybe multiple times.
Right.
But yes, I need to buy those films. That's a good point. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah. Also, kind of somewhat on topic, I guess. There's a YouTuber named The Hacksmith, and he made John Wick's bulletproof suit, which is really cool.
It works?
Well, obviously not as effective as the movie, I assume. I haven't watched the movies. My imagination when he said that was like, he's walking and then someone shoots at him. It's like sparks come off his suit and it's like untouched. That's like what.
It's not quite that ridiculous.
Okay.
It hurts and knocks him back or whatever. But.
Okay, cool. Well, in that case, yeah, it's actually maybe not something.
But it's like a suit. Like it looks nice, like a suit. Like
I gotta send the video, but
drop it in the chat.
Yeah, it is really cool. A lot of research and development went into making it. Hacksmith, John Wick suit, and he tested it with some weapons, and yeah, it stopped bullets. It both the I think is a vest and like the the outer suit thing are both bulletproof.
I find this a
custom
little hard,
custom tailored and stuff like that. It makes sense.
Interesting.
It's
Because
just
something so thin as like a suit, I can't imagine being bullet. Because normally it's Kevlar. Kevlar has a certain.
It's a little bit thick. It's a little bit. It's like if someone walked up to me, I wouldn't actually think about it. I'd be like, that's just a normal suit, But if someone pointed out, hey, this suit's a little bit thicker, isn't it? I'd be like, oh yeah, that is kind of thick for a suit,
Yeah, I dropped in the Rumble chat as well. By the way, for those who are watching on Rumble,
you can see the final product at 22 minutes, something like that. So
interesting. Yeah,
22 minutes, 20 seconds probably.
Yeah. Did they get Keanu actually in? No, it's not Keanu.
No.
he's just dressed up. He looks very much so like him.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. Cool. Well, there's that. Sweet. So on to the gaming section.
Sure. Oh, real quick. This is movie related, but not John Wick related. I just have to ask in the movie segment. So Spotify is this thing for students, or if you pay $5 a month, you get Spotify Premium as well as Showtime and Hulu, but it has ads. Right now, I don't like subscriptions because it's like I'm throwing money in a hole. I'm never getting that back. Right. Although obviously there is some value in them because you get things, and those things you retain, right? Like watching a movie, right? I mean, you don't get the experience of watching the movie once the subscription is over, right? You always have that, whatever. Do you think that is worth it?
Well, price-wise, that's definitely worth it. I mean, just on an objective level, even though I hate anything, streaming related. And I've almost I'm so close to cutting Netflix out of my life. It's just, anyway. But I've cut everything else out of my life, practically. I would say that objectively it has to be worth it because that price is just so low. It's like, how is it not going to provide at least $5 a month of value? I will say, though, that Hulu is the worst streaming platform out of them all. Because it looks the worst, it sounds the worst, and they have, weird content. It's I don't know, not a lot of stuff I would want to watch, per se. But at the same time, if you're getting Spotify Premium, Spotify Premium itself is probably worth $5 a month, practically speaking. So it's, basically free. So I guess, from an objective point of view, it is worth the value of the $5 petrodollars that you will be paying. So,
right,
yeah,
interesting.
Don't do it. No. Yeah. By the way, I would like to say also, if you can't afford to do otherwise, I do understand it. It's not I think you're evil or whatever. For streaming or whatever. It's just it's not as necessary as you think once you get beyond a certain point. So if you're in college or whatever, I do get it. I'd rather people at that point be watching movies at all so that the culture is still alive than stick it to the man with a few subscriptions or whatever. It's the mass scale that I'm annoyed about. So yeah. Okay, so that's Mixed Media Movies. Now on to Mixed Media Gaming.
Nice.
Oh, Ben's popping in.
Hey, whee! Perfect timing.
Yeah. Let's transition over, and then we'll say hi to Ben. Here we go.
Mixed Media Gaming.
Welcome to Mixed Media Gaming. If you've been watching live, you've always been here. But if not, this should be a new segment. We'll be talking about VR and the current state of things. So yeah, currently some things we should be aware of. Firstly, Irving's camera is frozen, so that if you're watching on a non-audio only thing, it's just going to be like that, for this episode. And something else I wanted to mention. What was it? Oh yeah, I have to be out of here by 10 p.m. because I'm in a room. I don't really know. I mean, the building closes, so I could relocate potentially. I don't know where though is the issue. So I'm gonna try to speed run this.
Yeah.
Right now, I guess people don't know, it's 9:17 p.m., so I have 45 minutes, a little less than that to get going. So yeah, I guess with that, let's introduce ourselves. So my name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and game developer.
My name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
And we cannot hear Ben.
I can't hear you, Ben. Oh no.
All right. I had to adjust all of my audio settings the other day. Is it quieter than? Is it too quiet?
It's
That
like
sounds
slightly
fine to me.
quieter, but I think it's good enough.
All right, I mean, let's try. Is that better?
It's a little too
And
hot now.
that's really that's
Yeah.
much less than it used
It
to
seems
be.
fine to me. I don't know. But
Cool. Is that
Yeah,
in
that's
between?
good. Yeah, that's
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Let's try that again. Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer living in Los Angeles.
Sweet.
nice. All right, so
Ben
yeah,
just
this is the
popped
Mixed
in.
Media. Oh yeah, he just got here. So
Mhm.
cool. So yeah, this is the Mixed Media Podcast. We're talking about all things art. So, all right, let's get into it with the gaming segment. So, VR. So I'll be talking about specifically, VR, obviously right now, and also the past decade of VR. I consider the past decade as I'm calling it the modern era of VR because VR has been around for a very long time. The idea of virtual reality is not new, but like the consumer grade hardware for VR is about 10 years old, a little bit less, but in terms of when people start talking about it, it's been about 10 years. So, in 2013, or I think, sorry, in 2012, Oculus raised $2.5 million on Kickstarter to create a VR headset. And they promised the first consumer grade headset. The issue with prior ones being that they were simply too expensive. You can't really afford like a $2,000 piece of equipment to put on your head, and it's not like loaded with consumer apps, right? It's probably some random applications that aren't going to be useful for the average person. So Oculus came up with that claim, made $2.5 million on Kickstarter, and subsequently announced the Oculus Rift. Now, Facebook seeing this was like, hey, this is interesting. And so they acquired Oculus for $2 billion in 2014. And interestingly enough, Samsung, in the same year, we saw a lot of interest in VR. So not only did Facebook buy Oculus for $2 billion, we also saw sort of, I guess, Google and Samsung Google sort of clowning on them in a way by releasing Google Cardboard as like the ultra cheap VR system. And that is simply a piece of cardboard you slap to an Android phone, and they use the phone as your VR screen, and the rest of the cardboard goes around your head. And you have I guess a poor man's VR experience, but it's possible, with very cheap, very cheap equipment, literally just cardboard. Oculus came back and kind of made something similar called the Samsung Gear VR, which was a not made out of cardboard. It was an actual something that's actually durable headset that you can meant to be used with a Samsung Galaxy phone as your screen instead. In 2016, the Oculus Rift was first introduced to the market. It was a solid $600, and it originally Doom 3 was one of the big pushes for it. So they worked with Doom 3, or worked with id Software, the creators of Doom 3, to create a virtual reality experience. Now, if you know what Doom is, and you know playing that in VR, I'm wondering if you think this is a good idea. I see
This
a
sounds
lot of
like a good idea
sickness
to me.
Doom 3 is a very fast-paced game, and we'll get to these issues later. But maybe have that be a little bit of a little bit of foreshadowing. If they thought Doom 3 is like this will be the golden standard of VR games. That same year, we saw even more interest in the VR industry. We saw the HTC Vive came out, which is a headset created by, of course, HTC, along with in partnership with Valve. And that same year, we also saw the PlayStation VR. So that was for the PlayStation 4, and it was a VR headset that would be able to be paired with that. A couple of years later, going to 2019, this is when we see sort of like the more, we see really big advancements in VR. So the Valve Index comes out. So Valve stops partnering with HTC, released the Index, but at the cost of a lot of money. $1,000. Was the starting price for the full set. So it was a headset, you got controllers, and you got these little I don't know what they call them actually. These little things you put around your room that help track the
Stations.
motion and stuff like that, right?
It's called base stations.
Base stations, yes, that's what they're called. So that was all $1,000. But in the same year, Oculus released both the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Rift S, which is a refresh of the Oculus Rift. The Oculus Quest was sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum. There was no base station, which was an innovation. It simply worked using only internal systems. There's nothing externally needed other than, of course, controllers. You couldn't just use your hand, I guess. So I guess there's something a little bit external. But all the computing power, everything was inside the headset. Before that, with the Index, you needed a separate PC as well. So not only are you spending $1,000 on a headset, you had to have a pretty beefy PC to use it. The Quest at only $400 was quite the deal, it seems. A pretty easy setup, quite cheap. And the Oculus Rift S also came out with the same price, $400. The Rift S was more powerful, but it also required base stations, so it's a little bit of a inconvenience factor there that caused it to be the same price. You either have the mobility of the Quest, the ease of use, or the power of the Rift S. It was up to you to choose. Only a year later, however, the Rift S, the whole Rift line actually, was discontinued in support of the Oculus Quest 2, which even cheaper at $300. So no, we've gone from the Oculus Rift being the first consumer headset, I guess arguably the first consumer grade headset for $600, to just half of that with the Oculus Quest 2. And it was at this time that Meta decided to rebrand, or Facebook decided to rebrand into Meta, which would become very relevant, as the reason why is due to the so-called metaverse, which we'll get to later. And last little bit of our history is this year, actually. This year, the PlayStation VR 2 was released in February, I believe, and paired with the PlayStation 5, and it costs $550. So, I'm saying, all this sounds pretty good for the VR industry, right? We have big players in the game. We have Google, we have Samsung, we have Facebook, now known as Meta. We have PlayStation, we have Valve, we had HTC, I guess, at some point. So, lots of hardware investment. But what's interesting is on the other side, we don't really see nearly as much software investment. So there are, the major staples of VR. In 2014, we got Super Hot VR. I've played that before. It's actually pretty fun. And then in 2019, we got Beat Saber. I haven't played that, but that's very well liked and very well known. And then we got Half-Life Alyx in 2020. And that actually caused the Valve Index to be sold out at the time. But a lot of the issues there are many issues that plagues VR. One of them is the low amount of options we still have for games. So there was definitely a lot more hype, in 2013, 2014, 2015 about the amount of games to be able to play. This was like the future. This will be the next way we play games, right? We'll be leaving our computers and our normal computers and going on to these VR systems. But the issue is, on the Quest Store, we still only have 170 applications. Now, the Quest line is, it's a few years old at this point, right? And we still only have 170 applications. Now, note that the 170 applications aren't just games, because the Quest can be used for, of course, applications that aren't just games. So this is being mixed media gaming. I don't really care about the rest of it. I'm only concerned with the gaming aspect of it. So I'm not actually sure how many of those 170 are games, but they're not all games. Now,
what sort of things are not games on there? Like what the things that aren't games? What are they?
So there's a funny meme of Mark Zuckerberg did this little reveal thing, I guess. This little press announcement of. I don't know if it's when the Quest was announced or something. I'm not entirely sure when it was, but they showed off this meeting room where you could meet in a virtual setting. This might have been like a pandemic type thing. So instead of going into your office and having a meeting there, you'll get in this little virtual room with all your all your coworkers, and it's one. Good luck getting a bunch of getting a business to buy that many quests for your,
no. They would give select businesses tons of them for free. They do that with they did that with the roller coaster industry for a very short period of time. They were trying to convince parks that this was a good idea to add VR to roller coasters so that you could feel the forces of some VR experiences, which Which, for like 99% of cases, was a very bad idea because it only led to motion sickness and like people like throwing up desync problems, and
Wow,
the experiences weren't even worth anything.
We've hit so many issues, and we're just the beginning. I mean, the fact that you can't. I mean, the interesting thing is that that is created because you can't actually feel anything in VR, right? Which is like kind of part of the problem. And if you do feel anything, now you have motion sickness. But we'll get to that later. There's a whole bunch of issues.
I'm still like stuck on this like virtual meeting thing. Like, is that really an improvement on Zoom?
No, it is not. No. Not in any capacity. Not at all.
But they want it to be. So
it's not even like it's like you go in and you see a bunch of like I don't know like what do you call those things again? A bunch of Mii's from the Wii. You know what I'm talking about? Those little Mii avatars.
That's what I was thinking you were going to say.
That's what they look like.
I was imagining. Like, how is that better than Zoom?
It is not. to be quite clear.
It's more personal, Ben, obviously, because you can see little digital limbs moving around.
yeah, you see little limbs moving
and
around.
I can just wave my hand and you can see my
No.
real hand.
In fact, I'm sure Oculus would have you want that. Or actually, at this point, it's been rebranded to the Meta Quest. So Meta would want that this podcast would be should be actually in a virtual reality environment where we all in our little round table and be talking to each other there, and we have some virtual camera set up and people will see our little avatars. And it'll be probably a little bit glitchy and stuff like that, and it would be...
we have an episode on the metaverse if you want to check it out, where we discuss a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, it's a little bit wacky. It's a little bit wacky. I cannot lie.
Right. There are probably advertisements for all sorts of things popping up too randomly. Like, right, like, I raise my hand and like this, on top of my hand is pasted like, an ad for some like shampoo or something.
Yes.
Exactly. It'll actually show up different for everybody, which will be very uncomfortable because you'll always be wondering, can other people see what my ad is? Oh man.
Yeah. So, yeah, we are fast ahead of all the problems that there are. But for now, we just have application scarcity. 170 apps in the Quest Store might sound a lot, but you might be saying, well, the Quest is not the only store, right? We have other competition. That's true. The biggest competition in terms of library size would be the Valve Index, because you have access to all Steam games that are VR compatible, and there are 600 of those games. Now, this might sound like a lot, but you have to keep in mind. Okay, now the general library of Steam is massive. It is way bigger, and it wouldn't even be fair comparing. Now, the number of games on Steam, I don't really think is a very useful figure, because a lot of those games are kind of like just not good, and things that people will never play, things that have one review at most, and these things aren't like really like new entrants that are like actually threatening a lot of other games, or have like a lot of that are meaningful to the platform, I guess, right? Other than simply inflating numbers. But we can have use a platform that actually vets their game, say Xbox Game Pass, where as of a year ago, I didn't get a figure for now, but as of a year ago, they had around 475 games on Xbox Game Pass. So that is less. That's 125 less, but you bet that there are at least 125 games that are not on Xbox Game Pass that are worth something. There are many more than 125. There are probably, probably many times 475 games, that people play regularly. So that VR game capacity is very small. Now, if you do want that library, remember, you have to pay Valve Index prices. You have to pay $1,000 for a Valve Index compared to the $300 for a Quest 2. So you are definitely paying for that larger library size. And now, there are many other issues aside from, even if there was like widespread adoption by games, you have a lot of issues. You have motion. So you're confined to your play area. Sure, you can walk around your room, but how big is your room actually, right? Even if you're walking around in a gym, I mean, think about how many games, how long you're walking in a lot of games. You might not think about it because you're not actually doing it in games typically, so you don't feel it, but you're walking long distances sometimes, even if it feels like a small little thing. I'm sure in Doom 3, for example, right, you're walking, your total walking distance throughout the entire game is going to be quite high. And
Like, can you imagine like strafing and like
Yeah.
like, it sounds like you'd
yeah,
break
and
an
then you get
ankle.
motion sickness. You get motion sickness. So that's the issue
Yeah.
with VR games is when what's happening in the game is not perfectly matching what a lot of your other senses are feeling, because VR at the very 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 basic level, very stripped down, the most simple VR system is just emulating vision, right? And like your head movements. That's all it is at the very basic. Obviously, you add on things to that like audio, right? So you have little speakers in your ears and stuff like that, or I don't know, speakers, headphones, and you add the motion tracking of your arms and things like that. But there's still a lot of things. For example, like your sense of balance. That's not a thing that's emulated in the game. So if your character in the game is, say, on a roller coaster in the game, and you're not on a roller coaster in real life, but you're tilted up in the game, that's gonna feel really weird when you're looking up and your body's like, no, I am perfectly fine right now. I'm perfectly planted normally. So yeah, I mean, luckily enough, when I haven't played any like VR games that are like that, I would not venture to go roller coaster simulator. That sounds terrifying. Like it sounds worse than a real roller coaster, to be honest. But when I did play Super Hot, I didn't feel any motion sickness. But Super Hot VR is very smart. You don't move. you have basically no reason to move. You sit in the same spot pretty much the entire time. So yeah, motion sickness, play area, motion in general is very bad. Now, what is the point in virtual reality? The point for a lot of people is immersion. The issue is none of that exists because, well, let's take a look at the top genre by median revenue on the Quest store. The top genre is fighting. Let me know how you fight people without fists that actually hit things. How does that work? Now, there are actual sword fighting games, and it's as if you're whirling around literally nothing. Actually, there's no mass to it. And you can put like a stick in your hand, I guess. All right, but have fun putting a hole in your wall, I guess. But if you avoided this fact, you're not actually colliding with anything. So your swings are going right through things. That does not feel realistic at all. You are powerful. You can go through
Well, how
anything.
do you parry with this? I don't understand.
Well, you put your sword up, and the thing hits you. You don't feel a single thing. You just see it. And you'll have some sort of like, system in the game where your arm in the game isn't perfectly synced up with your motions in real life. So your character will feel forces even though you won't, right? So the sword in the game might move a little bit, but your arm won't because it can't. There's no actual like feedback that would cause it to do that, right? So yeah, it's very cheesy.
It sounds uncomfortable.
Yeah, so you're playing VR just for immersion, but then there's no immersion. So I'm not really sure how that works out. Now, but then there's the next idea. Oh, but we don't need immersion. We need the metaverse. Who needs immersion when you can live in an alternate reality that is better than our reality, right? So what is the metaverse, right? This is a very big buzzword. Well, there are a lot of IPs involved when people mention the metaverse. The term metaverse comes from the book Snow Crash. I have not read it. I don't know actually what the definition is, and this will be irrelevant as we'll see later. People talk about Ready Player One as like a sort of world where you can hop into different games and stuff like that, all in the same world, all connected. And then people also talk about Sword Art Online as another similar type deal to Ready Player One as well. Well, there's no common specific definition that I can find, right? Because people will say, well, Roblox is a metaverse. Okay. How is that like any of the things I mentioned? I don't know about Snow Crash, but how is it like Ready Player One or Sword Art Online? Well, you have connected games. Okay. How are they connected? Very loosely. The common theme is that they share the same engine and they're tied to the same account. So, sharing the same engine. That cannot be something that's useful because I would say that, anything made by Unity, for example, is in the same metaverse, which we know is not true at all. Now, the account thing is more interesting because in Roblox, if you buy like certain items for your character, certain cosmetic items, they can transfer to different games. So, fair enough. You have sort of player continuity between games. Actually, things you do in one game may actually affect your character in another game, right? Fair enough, I guess. But then people will say things like, Meta is creating the metaverse. Was the virtual meeting the same? Is that the same idea? Is it the same idea as Roblox? I don't know about that. It seems like entirely.
Isn't Mr. Zuckerberg's idea that we should be that Facebook should be, or sorry, Meta should be building the fabric in which everything interlocks, basically.
Yeah, so he
basically said that everyone's going to do it.
I guess. Yeah, they'd be building like the open probably say something like the open standard for meta communication and stuff like that, or metaverse communication and stuff like that. So all their third parties are capable of building onto the metaverse using Meta's whatever standards they provide essentially. So that's their idea, I guess. Yeah, and they've rebranded entirely based off of this idea, by the way. So that was interesting.
It seems like a pretty dead. I said that, by the way, in my metaverse idea, or in my metaverse video. I was like, "Is this going to happen?" I really don't think so. Yeah. So I think it's kind of already dead in a lot of ways.
Yeah, a little bit dead in the water.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we have like the Matrix is like another big IP that we see is like, well, the Matrix is the metaverse, right? That's literally a virtual world where you do everything inside it, right? And there's a lot of like memes about like Matrix life realities that could exist and stuff like that. With the a lot of having to do with the what's that thing called? It's like an international organization. That said, you'll be happy, you'll own nothing. I forget what that was.
Oh, the World Economic Forum.
Yes, the World Economic Forum. Like it'll be like a World Economic Forum type world, and you will own nothing because the metaverse is cheaper, so you can live in the metaverse while all the rich people chill in the real world, and that'll be like where all the good stuff is, whatever. But the metaverse will be for the poor people and stuff like that. So that is also another description of the metaverse. Probably something that Meta would not, the company probably would say, no, that's not what that is. So we have no agreement on what the metaverse actually is. Now, there's also this like tying in. This is like I feel like we already have the metaverse kind of dead in the water. We have seen not much stuff going on there, kind of, but not much of value. We've seen stuff going on there, not much of value. But then we have this whole sort of cancer on the metaverse idea, which I don't even understand it, I guess. But even then, we have something that's sort of leeching onto it and making it worse. And this idea that for some reason, we have to tie in the metaverse to the blockchain, crypto, and NFTs. Now, I have no problem with any of these ideas, right?
I've talked about that too, yeah.
Yeah. But why it is required, the issue is that there's this culture with like crypto bros and stuff like that, which once again, I have no problem with like crypto at all. I don't really care. But for some reason, we have this idea that like crypto bros are like, you dude, we gotta put the blockchain on this, right? Once you put the blockchain on this, we'll just start making money. It's like, where are we getting this from? For some reason, like these crypto bros will be like, it feels like, I don't know if they realize this, but like they're very money orientated in a way that's like not about providing value, but about just like putting blockchain onto something and saying, wow, the value has increased and we'll just make money now, right?
Guys, this is what the older people called the .com bubble, when the .com bubble was a thing. It was just like internet everything. We'll say our business is related to the internet and we'll make money. That was the .com bubble. It's the same thing. It doesn't mean that the underlying technology is not useful. Obviously, with the internet, like, obviously it became, very useful. But, it's the same idea, and the bubble pops either way, That's the problem.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we've seen entrance into the whole blockchain, crypto, and NFT thing, like Decentraland and the Sandbox. Sandbox I mentioned ages ago on the podcast. It was like a virtual land buying thing where people could make games on it. I had no idea what happened to that. I just know their website was so unperformant I could not use it. Like it would literally increase RAM usage over time. It would not stop. I don't know how you memory leak a browser thing, but I've never heard of that. But that's what happened on that website. Let's talk about Decentraland, because Decentraland is big, and you probably never heard of it. Decentraland raised $25.5 million, and they're valued at $1.2 billion. So, what is Decentraland? Decentraland, I believe, is a project that started, I think, in 2015. It's kind of older. It's predates Meta. It is earlier it's early on in the modern VR era, right? We weren't really talking about the metaverse yet at that time. At least I don't think we were. At least I wasn't. So what did they do? They created what they consider the metaverse. Their definition is, I guess, just essentially the world you live in. I guess you don't have to live in it, but it's a world where you do all your things, you do all your shopping. You take all these real world things, you put it online because I guess that makes it better. I don't really know, right? Just for the sake of it, it seems. I actually uploaded a video.
Well, they'll promise a whole bunch of experience as compensation, right? They'll promise like fun,
yeah,
or like
I
something.
gotta speed it up because I gotta go very soon. So,
oh, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
But there's a video in the Stream Media channel if you could play that, and you don't have to play the audio.
Right.
But it is Fashion Week in Decentraland because a lot of big brands have hopped onto this. That's how they're raising so much money. How they're valued at $1.2 billion. We've had Hershey also create a virtual store inside of it. So yeah, let's see what this is all about. The idea is there are a lot of games you can play in it. You can make money because that's like the big thing. You look up Decentraland, a lot of videos like how to make X amount of money in Decentraland because for some reason we need to be making money if we're talking about the blockchain. Let me know if this looks better than reality.
Okay, but like there are people who actually currently spend all their time in places like this.
Maybe I'd say I haven't.
No, I know of. Yeah. Like
okay,
it happens.
Yeah, I didn't actually put this in my notes, but I should talk about VR chat, and I got a speed run, so I'll talk about VR chat sometime. Now I'll figure it out. Okay, so if you can't see if you're on audio only, you can't really see. Just know that we're looking at essentially Roblox, but maybe a little worse, somehow in terms of visual appearance. I'm not trying to roast Roblox like that. The game is a game. I shouldn't call it a game. It is not a game. It is a I don't know what you call it. It was a metaverse, I guess. You don't have to play games and you can do many things. This is a fashion show that's taking place. It is very unperformant in terms of the your actual your FPS will get on such a simple thing. Not very good. It is incredibly buggy. If you look at the games that exist, they look like they were created in Roblox like 20 years ago, and I don't know if Roblox existed 20 years ago. So there's that. It is generally not a good experience. Now, a lot of people talk about Decentraland. How is it valued at $1.2 billion? This game that looks like the average indie developer could whip up in 3 seconds. Well, I shouldn't call it a game. I keep doing that. It's just force of habit for being on the Mixed Media Gaming podcast. I just I talk about games. So, well, the reason is, as we can see, things like a Fashion Week on it. We see things like Hershey. Hershey made a store in it. What does the Hershey store look like? Well, you go in it. It looks like a very low-quality Hershey store. And you try to buy anything in it, guess what? It just redirects you to the website of Hershey. You just get taken out of the metaverse to go to reality, where you go and you go
because they can't make you taste the chocolate virtually yet.
Now, this is dumb because
but
all we've done is
see, now I don't have to. I can feel like I'm in a store while lying in bed, I guess. Right?
Is a very poor excuse of a virtual experience. I'll say that. It's not even a good virtual experience for a store.
But that's the ultimate aim, right? But you can just lie in bed the rest of your life, and you can have all these experiences, right? That's the ultimate aim, right?
Sure, but the issue is what we realized is hey, it's a lot more convenient to look at a list of products than to manually look around on a shelf and browse things when you can't even feel them or taste them or smell them. There is no point at that point. Okay, the point of being in a store physically.
This is rather obvious.
Because some people at some point in history decided that it would just be better if everything were online instead of in real life.
Well, that's fine. But it's just better when it's a list of items instead of just because
that would require you to. It's only better if you have actually experienced these things in real life.
That's true.
If you haven't experienced them in real life, then what are you missing?
I see. I don't know what to say.
You just have to wait for the next generation to grow up that has never experienced leaving their bedroom.
Right, and I'll be like, wow, this Hershey experience, man, this is something different.
Exactly. It's not for us. It's for the next generation that has never lived had a real life experience.
They'll never actually experience it because the Hershey store shut down a week later because it was light school.
Because it doesn't work.
In fact, there are many random large brands that do this, and here's my theory. is just being used as a marketing beat so they can have a title, like a headline on a news thing that says X company has joined the metaverse, and they just shut it down immediately. So it's just like a random news story that puts them on a headline, right? They put $2 into it, relatively speaking. They
hired an intern to design the store. Let's be honest.
Yeah. And they say, hey, put this in Decentraland, and you'll see a headline, and it's crazy, dude. It's actually crazy. The videos and the headlines you'll see about Decentraland, it'll be like, dude, it's crazy out here. We have Hershey in the metaverse. This is the future. Oh my god, wow, this is crazy. They show maybe like one image that looks kind of good, I guess. Maybe if you squint at it and turn your head a little bit, and you're
or if you're
blind,
like you
legally,
just you flick your finger.
Yeah, and you'll see, dude. This is videos about Fashion Week from like actual fashion people, and they'll be like, yeah, like it wasn't great, but like just wait till the next one. You know what I'm saying? Just wait, give it like a year, maybe 2 years. You know what I'm saying? Give it like a moment. Right now it's a little bit glitchy. They had some internal errors at the time, but like give it a moment.
But who's designing the fashion? Like I don't know if I understand any of this. I'm not gonna.
I don't know.
Like, where's the fashion coming from?
I don't know, but I bet that's an NFT somehow. They made an NFT.
Oh gosh.
Oh man. And by the way, Decentraland, based on the name, decentralized, right? Okay. Blockchain decentralized. Guess what? So, there have to be some people who have to actually own Decentraland, right? The infrastructure, the servers behind it, the development, it's owned by somebody, right? And the idea was like, we'll make this a democracy, people will vote on things, right? You know what they did? For some reason, we're trying to escape reality here, right? That's what the metaverse is trying to do. They just took us and shoved us into the worst part of reality by making it so that people with more money have more voting power. Why? Why is it a good idea? More specifically, more of the crypto, not like
But how else are they going to make money?
I don't know. So there's like quote unquote legislation, metaverse legislation about like regulating like money, for example, right? And like making it so that how do you fix the problem when the people who are the problem are like just like able to veto anything with 3 votes from big whales, right? It's like, wow, thank you for taking like the most dystopian parts of like real democracy and just like putting them in this game or not the game, the
but again, it's not for people who have experienced democracy. If you're someone, you're a little kid, you've never left your room before, you never have to leave your room. And that's just the way that things work.
At least in a dystopian world like 1984, right? There's like this there's this like acceptance that there has to be people who transition to it, right? There's got to be like a wave of people who actually experienced the before time and then the after time, right? It's gonna be because otherwise you're gonna have to have like I don't know your parent. You have to be like a parent, but like, hey kid, like I would never go in there, but you go in there. You do that,
That already happens.
You chill in there.
That already happens though. Like
yeah,
now.
Let me get to. I have like 9 minutes. I gotta go. Really, I gotta pack up and everything. So I gotta wrap this up. So
okay, sorry.
So VR chat. There is VR chat. I tried VR chat. Let me tell you, it's not the same when you're not in VR. You can technically use it without VR. I used it without VR. It wasn't the same experience, but it's really cool that you can talk to random people across the world and stuff like that. Talking to someone about languages, kind of cool. And then I was like, okay, I have enough of this. It's not that interesting. So it's kind of cool in a way. The thing is that VR chat is not this like it doesn't say like you can make money with the blockchain here. It's none of that. It's none of that like like very like not. It feels like a genuine project. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Decentraland feels maybe genuine. Maybe they have genuine intentions. But intentions are dumb. So there's that. Whereas VR chat is okay. The big issue with VR chat is the amount of like little children. Like I'm telling like toddlers. Like I'm hearing them. I'm like, dude, this is like. This person's like 7 years old, probably 6 maybe. I'm like, dude, no. You should not be here for sure. Like I don't know. I mean, yeah, I go on Roblox at least. I don't know. That's a better.
That's the point. I mean, that's what the companies want. Because once you grow up with it, it's what reality is.
I will say, I was actually kind of scared about the idea of the metaverse, and I was actually more scared about my experience in VR chat. I was like, wait, there are actually kids here. That's like
it's disturbing.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, the fiasco with Roblox wanting to have like 3-year-olds talking to like 23-year-olds. Like, it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, a little freaky.
Yeah. But anyways,
anything
I gotta go
for that $1.
I gotta say, last words here. The metaverse is a money hole. It is a poorly thought out. It's missing all the beauties of real life in terms of visual, sound, etc. It's missing the meaning of actual life. It's missing the spirit of real life and the things that are actually good. So yeah, I would not recommend you invest in any metaverse projects. You have a better chance at investing in Star Citizen. I would actually genuinely recommend doing that more than putting money into Decentraland, because at least that is something that is of actual use sometimes, So yeah. So Decentraland worth $1.2 billion. Also, for all the crypto bros, if you want to make money, you want to do a quick money scheme. Think about the fact that people value a company at $1.2 billion and it does nothing. You can do this too, probably, with all the effort you're putting in. Okay, you too can scam people as well. Okay, it's probably a lot easier than making money in Decentraland metaverse. So people actually, this is kind of funny. I gotta go though, but I gotta say this one last thing. People will make money by make cryptocurrency by just AFK farming. It's you can mine rocks or something like that. Because I mean, obviously the rocks are useless in the metaverse because you don't construct things with actual materials, right? So it just gives you money, like crypto money, and people just do that AFK, and then it's essentially it's kind of like crypto mining, except we've put it behind 10 layers of abstraction and given it to probably a worthless cryptocurrency is my guess, unless they use some actual useful cryptocurrency. Even then, I'm sure that you get 0.00001 times 10 to the negative 42nd amount of that cryptocurrency. So yeah. Anyways, I have to go. So I have 5 minutes. So
are you coming back on, or are you just skedaddling?
It depends on how long the bus takes to get there. I haven't posted a Reddit thing for Ben to do, but I'll post it at least on the bus. So hopefully I'll get that in before the podcast ends. So yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, I'll see you guys later, maybe.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right.
That was a good one. Let's transition over here to so let me outro that for Nathan while he's gone. But basically, if you just agree, disagree, or anything about VR, you think it's the best thing since sliced bread. I personally, the only use case I can think of currently that it's actually useful for is for sim piloting or sim anything, where you just sit down and it's on your face and it's just pure immersion. That works pretty well. But if it's metaverse stuff, that's just pure nightmare fuel right there. But what are your thoughts? If you disagree about the metaverse, we'd love to hear about it, especially on Discord, link in the description. There's a lot to say about crypto also, for sure. So let us know what your thoughts are on that. I have a lot of thoughts on that I have yet to share on the show. But hopefully we'll have a big discussion one day, and that'll be fun. All right, so next we have mixed media music. So we'll transition over to that. Here we go.
Mixed media music.
All right, welcome to Mixed Media Music. I am your host for this segment, Ben Costello. I am a flute player and media composer living in Los Angeles. And this is the portion of the Mixed Media Podcast dedicated to all things related to music, with a particular emphasis on classical and media music. And today, on Mixed Media Music, we have our weekly Arguing with Reddit segment that rotates between which one of our three hosts are handling that. And for those of you who are not familiar, Arguing with Reddit, in that segment, I will be responding to some hot takes, controversial opinions, questions, things of that nature, found on the internet, although usually from Reddit. One of which I picked for myself, although to be honest, I don't remember what I picked for myself, so I don't have any advantage there. The other one, Irving found for me, my co-host found for me, so I'll be responding to that without prior preparation. And allow my co-host here to introduce himself. He'll be kind of joining me on this segment.
Yes, my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
All right. So on to some hot takes related to music.
Yes. So here we go. This one is from me. So let me see if I remember what it is. Oh, yes. So it says, know the repertoire. Often you hear of conductors and composers saying to know the standard repertoire or something along those lines from a composition / conducting point of view. What does that exactly mean? Study every score, study every last note, read along a couple times to a recording, be able to conduct it without a score, etc. What does it mean, basically?
So, ironically, I don't remember what I picked for myself, but I do remember reading this one and almost picking it. So that's ironic. I almost picked this one for myself. So, okay, I mean, in some sense, it depends on what context you're looking at, but in general, no. I mean, I guess if you're truly a conductor, right, and you probably have more incentive to look into a score. But like, so okay, so yes, yeah, all right. You do mention from a composition / conducting point of view. Well, those are different things unless you were both a composer and a conductor. If you're a conductor, I would imagine that yes, you want to mostly you want to. What it means is you want to listen to these things. Probably more helpful to stare at a score if you're a conductor. Also, a composer, you probably want to look at the score a little bit. Have if not your own full analysis of what's going on, have somebody else's analysis guide you through a little bit like specific areas instead of an entire piece, and you can look at that and do some of your own analysis. And I don't necessarily mean doing like a chordal analysis or something like that. Just figure out what's going on in whatever way is relevant to you. If you're not one of those things, I mean, just generally you want to be familiar. Like, you don't have to be someone like in a graduate music program, like a doctoral program or master's program. Will often be a requirement, like kind of thing that I'm doing. Like, you have to in your like examination, right? Or defense, or kind of that's sort of like not but like pre-thesis sort of thing. You also have to like this comprehensive examination. You need to be prepared for them. I'll give you a list of like 500, I don't know, whatever number, depends on the program, number of pieces, and then you'll sit down and you'll play something and you have to identify what you heard and talk about it. That sort of thing. It'll be from that list. Okay, that's a specific like application of what we're talking about. But even then, I mean, it's mostly just like knowing, do I know all the Beethoven symphonies? If you put any of them on, can I identify which Beethoven symphony is and what movement it is? And that's probably even more than you need because, nobody's going to ask you about Beethoven's first or second symphony. Probably not the fourth either, right? So again, it's kind of contextual too, in like even for a performer, right? And so like, am I familiar with a broad range of classics? And I can probably say a few words about most of them. Yeah, I mean, that's what's important. If I'm a flute player, well, what is standard repertoire? Well, I need to know as a flute player all of the French Conservatory pieces from 1894 to 1910. It's just you have to know the French Conservatory test pieces. It's just what you do, right? If you're a bass player, I was talking to a bass player at my school the other day. He was talking about some bass concertos, upright, not like jazz, but bass, like string bass.
Mm-hmm.
It's important for them to know that like some classical era bass concertos, are they ever going to be played by anybody other than a bass player at a bass recital? Probably not. But is it important for a bass player to know them? Yes. Is it important for me to know them? No, not really. Unless I wanted to unless I'm a composer and I want to write a bass concerto. So, it's all contextual, but To the last point, what is the student repertoire? Is there a good list? I mean, well, I'm assuming we're talking about Western classical, art and music, so to speak. I don't think it's easy to come up with a list. You can probably buy like any college set of music history textbooks, and they'll give you probably a pretty good idea of the most common things that people talk, at least academically, right? Because it's different in some ways, like for someone who has studied music in a more rigorous manner than if you want to know what the general classical canon is. If you're just like a listener and you want to be like a well-educated listener, but you don't have the same requirements imposed by a university system that a musician studying in a university might have. For instance, I find I have the right here Northern History of Western Music, right? Good primer. Maybe not. It's more than that, but if you read through that, it'll probably give you a pretty good idea of what a lot of academic, musicians think are important. But I read through it, and it highlights a lot of the things that I'm like, well, I never would have thought of that in a million years. But of course, it highlights some of the major things too. It's really not like a straightforward answer. It's also somewhat dependent on what you're interested in too. Like if I have a personal interest in Russian music, so I probably will be more familiar and have my own set of definitions, like what is important Russian music, right? Like the average musician is probably not that interested in Glinka's Kamarinskaya. Okay, but to me, that's like, if you're talking about Russian music, that's like the first kind of tent pole of Russian music, orchestral music. So it's really a very broad. I'm not really answering you in a very concrete way. There are some things that pretty much everyone will agree on. You need to know Beethoven's Fifth and Ninth Symphony, that sort of thing. But if I tried to give you a list of even 10 pieces, I probably couldn't do it because I'd probably leave something important out and include something that somebody else wouldn't. And a top 10 list. So, think about what your context is for both, like how much, what depth you need to study the work or be familiar with it is. And also, another good thing, instead of just spending money on college textbooks, which you probably don't want to do. Boy, I started, is I had, my father had a set of 5 CDs, 100 masterpieces of classical music with like 20 different tracks on each one. And there's some weird inclusions on there and weird exclusions from that 5 CD set. But that was a really great, gives you some sense of who the most popular composers are and most popular pieces are. And you kind of build from that, like things like that. Compilation, like albums or like playlists. I'm sure you can find them on whatever way you access music, things like that, or even just like concert advertising, right? If you look at whatever the big local orchestra is, closest orchestra to you, I guarantee you they will highlight, every concert will highlight a work that is a masterpiece, so to speak, because that's what sells tickets. And if it's really a essential masterpiece, so to speak, in the opinion of a lot of people, they will make sure you know that. Right? It's not just, we're playing Brahms's Third Symphony. No, it's, come see this, superlative Brahms Third Symphony. If the advertising will tell you that. So it's a cheaper way than buying a college textbook or college. I know Edwin comments people talk about like the Oxford, Cheruskin History of Western Classical Music. Okay, well, if you want to buy all 5 volumes, you're probably spending like $500 or more. You probably don't want to spend $500 on a college textbook series on the history of Western classical music, which will give you probably answer this question for you in a pretty good way. But at the price of $500 and how many hours of reading in college textbooks, I don't know.
Yeah. Cool. Pretty comprehensive answer too. So this next one is from you, Ben. So I know you said you didn't remember what it was.
I truly cannot remember at all what I selected for myself. So.
Okay, let's see here. Let's pull it up real quick. There it is.
Okay. Yes, the accessibility of classical music in the past. All right, so this person is asking, their impression that they've been given over the years is that classical music has kind of always, in their quote, in their actual quote here, has been only for the elite for the vast majority of history. And they want to know whether that's true or not. And they're mostly interested in Beethoven. But they're wondering whether, it's the truth lies between the extremes of like, well, every, quote, peasant was humming Beethoven, or quote, a couple of sneering aristocrats, only a couple of sneering aristocrats knew who Beethoven was. Okay. And I like this. They end with any grumpy grad students want to weigh in and set the record straight. There's a great comment by I think person's name on Reddit is Lil Kareed, who is really great commenter on our classical music, and also our composer. Often has really fantastic answers.
Whoa, it's very long.
It is. Well, and then they end with, I am a grumpy grad student, so here's what I have to say, whatever. And, well, here I am, too. I'm also, I don't know if I'm grumpy or not, but I am a music grad student. So I'm not going to try and repeat this 7 paragraph long answer. But what was my response? I had a good response to this before I completely forgot what I had even selected. I guess in some sense you have to define you probably have to define what classical music is. Like, what are you including and what are you excluding? And yes, I do recommend reading this really comprehensive first comment by Lil Kareed, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, or Lil Kareed, I don't know. Probably has a lot better, more thought out response than I can give. But my perspective is a little bit different, in that I think, yes, this kind of shifts over time, but also what shifts over time is what is considered classical music and what is popular music and light music and entertainment music. And that's I think an important distinction, because a lot of things we would consider classical in the broader sense of Western art music, right? We would consider classical music now. I mean, it didn't necessarily have the function of being something you go sit down at a concert to appreciate from afar, and you applaud, and you have had your aesthetic experience, and then you leave. If we look at like the Johann Strauss and Johann Strauss Jr., right, and all their waltzes, those aren't quite concert waltzes, although that's how we treat them now. But these are being written for social dancing, right? They have very set structures that the dancers can anticipate, and that's what it's for. you go to a ball in Vienna and you dance waltzes to these waltzes. They're not for you to sit down in a seat for two hours and have an aesthetic experience, while you're sitting there. Versus they're meant to be danced to. Do we do that? All right, again, we don't do that now. We consider them classic, the Blue Danube, right? I mean, that is, one of the pillars of classical music. You're supposed to dance to it in its original time, right? All right, so is that classical music? Would that have been considered the same sort of thing as the aesthetic experience of sitting down and listening to a Beethoven quartet? My understanding is no. Granted, this is more limited to people who are, rich enough to go to a aristocratic ball in Vienna, but it's not the same thing. So I guess you kind of want to ask yourself, what are you defining as classical music? In addition to all of these, fantastic thoughts by Lil Creed, which really is pretty comprehensive, on a like 5-paragraph level instead of like a graduate course level, which I'm sure you could spend a graduate course talking about this sort of thing, right? Reception of classical music. But what I would say is that, in general, by the 19th century, as music becomes more institutionalized and closer to the model that we have today of institutional music, music does become more of this thing that the middle class can certainly enjoy. Maybe there's some irony in that composers like to, take folk tunes and things from peasants and peasant tunes and whatever and put them in this art music, even though that's not the audience that's listening to them, their music. Maybe some irony there. But I think it kind of becomes set by the middle of the 19th century that this is kind of this good aristocratic but also middle class thing to do for your leisure and your aesthetic contemplation. In addition to other forms of music, like I said, like that have specific social functions like dance music. Now then I wonder, too. This gets into the definition of what classical music is, right? I mean, lots of music in the 19th and 20th and 21st centuries, right? Popular music, what the role of popular music is, it keeps shifting, right? Like, the songwriters in Tin Pan Alley, well, those are popular music, in the teens and the 1920s, right? But then they become kind of they take on a different life when they become kind of jazz standards in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, and now they're just branded as the great American songbook, so to speak. Like the shifting role of what is popular and what is now for aesthetic contemplation. Obviously, you can use it for not just, I'm using aesthetic contemplation in a kind of broader term, but right now you listen to Gershwin not as like popular music, that you might hear, on the radio, but it's something that you might study, or it's for your kind of more aesthetic kind of enjoyment instead of like this is just what's popular and this is what everyone's listening to on they're buying the latest record that has a Gershwin tune on it, right? It's something that Gershwin is a serious musician. We regard him as a serious musician now. Yeah. So that is to say that in addition to this question of the socioeconomic and barriers to music and institutionalization of music, what is popular can easily become art music. And I don't know if I can think of an example of something vice versa where it's art music and then it becomes something that's more of a probably are things like that. Oh, I guess something like some of these like classical crossover artists will do that.
Yeah.
Like, they'll take a classical piece of some sort, and like I know my mother really loves the flower duet from Lakme, but doesn't know anything about what Lakme is, or even that it is a flower duet from Lakme. But it is Enya, I think, like has a version of this flower duet from this kind of exotic ballet by French composer, exotic, kind of somewhat racist, potentially, opera by Leo Delibes, right? About just like about like a sensational Frenchman's view of India in like the middle of the 19th century. All right, so my mother has no clue about the opera or what the original context of this thing is, but Enya, recorded this, and it's in a classical kind of crossover, new wave sort of thing. Okay, well, I guess in that way, I don't know how popular that is, beyond the fact that I grew up with my mom playing it because she liked it. But that's probably an example of something that went from like not the most serious music to being more serious to being more of a popular hit, so to speak, in relatively, I guess. So just say the borders of all these things sort of shift, and consequently, what we regard, the place of music of a given piece shifts. The accessibility, I think, also shifts.
Yeah, makes complete sense. Very cool. Very interesting topic. Let's see here. The last one is from Nathan, who is not here to read it, so I will read it for him. I do not know what it's about at all, so bear with me. So it says, am I the only one who finds quote-unquote bad music sounding better with better setups? So people tend to say that the better your gear or setup is, the worse those pesky bad recordings sound. But what I've experienced is exactly the opposite. Both good and bad music sound way better than before. For context, I'm rocking a pair of specific gear. Also have 2 9-kilogram tube traps. Oh my gosh. Okay, this person's really intense with it.
Okay, yeah.
To me, all those bad songs that were just a musical blur before now sound very coherent, with precise imaging, excellent separation, and realistic vocals. The biggest difference with the well-made tracks are cymbals, hi-hats, etc., which tend to sound very unrealistic on bad record. That's very specific. Although,
yes, I
will inject a bit of technical knowledge on the last bit about cymbals. Cymbals have a lot of color. Like, they are the thing that gets destroyed the best by compression, because they're such complicated sounds. So I don't know. Some of these recordings, there might be a light amount of compression, and it might be some other things too, because of how sensitive cymbals are.
So I guess my question here is that, are we talking more about like mixing and like from that perspective, like, I'm listening to this particular mix, or are we talking about like not from perspective of somebody who is like an audio engineer?
I think he's trying to say as the end user, but then he says all this fancy equipment, so that I'm like, who has this?
Yeah. Well, I guess the better things are, it depends on what you're listening for. Like, if you're really listening for things in the way that I think an audio engineer might be listening for them, then yeah, you can probably, with better equipment, you might be able to hear more issues than were easily audible on less quality equipment. But also, I guess what we're asking is how well you can hear certain mixing decisions. And like, I know, for instance, that if I just listen to like anything on my phone, right, just playing it straight from my phone's like audio engines, which are fine, but have like absolutely zero bass, right? Yeah. Then I go to something which gives me even just a little bit of bass. It's a totally different experience. So I'm not sure then, obviously I can hear more of what was intended by the audio engineer. That's what the audio engineer was, designing the mix and the master for that to be present, right? So, I guess the better the better your setup is, the closer you can get to what the audio engineer or engineers intended. Whether that is a good sonic result for you, or not, probably depends on your knowledge of within what you could be listening for in a final mix and master, or what your aesthetic ideas are of what makes a good or bad master. I guess that's my response. The better your setup is, the closer you're going to get to what was intended, and it's up to you to decide whether what was intended is aesthetically pleasing to you or not. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's good to get close to what was intended by the audio engineer, unless maybe you feel that it sounds better to your aesthetic if you are further away from that. And you can develop your own taste as you will. I think it's interesting too for someone like me who deals with a lot of older recordings. It's very interesting to kind of compare various mixes and remixes and masters over the years, especially if you're listening to, recordings from the earlier portion of the 20th century, where newer mixes and masters have a lot more. There's some things that they can never fix, but they're gonna have a lot more power over what you can hear, and it may not be preferable, depending on your aesthetic. You may not like some of the clarity that you are getting compared to what audiences originally would have heard if they were playing the record. Or maybe you want the clarity because you think that's closer to what audiences would have heard in real life if they had heard the group. So it's you're going to have a whole range of different opinions on that.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Well, that's the last one.
All right.
Sweet. And thank you, everyone, for stopping by. If you want to take us out, I'm still frozen, so...
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on Mixed Media this evening, afternoon, night, whatever time it is for you. Thank you for watching and listening, if you are watching, listening live, or if you are watching or listening in post. Special shout out to all of our subscribers or supporters on local. I think. See if I can get. We have 4, right? We have 99 Crime, Rob Sharma, Post, and K Kairos.
Yes.
All right. So you can join them in supporting us or just following us more closely on our locals page. You can also join our Discord and keep discussion going, talking about any of these things we've mentioned on the show today, or any topic related to our and your artistic interests. Link to everywhere you can find us streaming to our Discord and to our local page is down there. Mixedmediapodcast.com.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's everything I can think of.
Yeah, no, that's it. I would like to say, for those of you who are still watching on Rumble, a lot of you watch but don't subscribe. The subscribe button is not, too scary. If you just, click it, it will be your friend. And that way you can check us out on future podcasts and whatnot. That's all I have to say.
All right. Well, once again, thanks for listening and watching to Mixed Media.
Mm-hmm. Bye.
Look, tell a man no trouble, I don't want beef, man, I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then I'm on site. Wrong move, I bet they gon' ride. No need for the telephone hype, nah. No need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no losing. Better watch out for the snake and Judas is. Don't ask them who this is. I bet they know what I'm moving in. I bet I show it into a dim. How you hate and then lose again? How you hating my vibes? Why you wasting my time? Getting hype on my line. Tell a man I don't want feedback, I just want relax. Brand new whip, two-tone, I need that brand new hit. Like lean back, brand new bits I live in. We back, man, you never gon' like us. Get them on sight now, let them on light. That way they know I'm more righteous. Look at my life, I'm living alright. I'm nice, you know I'm alright. Cause looking like Christ, no need.